This episode of The Majority Report is brought to you by Sunset Lake CBD at sunsetlakecbd.com. You have heard me talk about this company. Farm. They started out as a dairy farm. They were providing dairy for Ben and Jerry's up in Vermont. And in 2018, they decided to diversify. They started to grow hemp and make these amazing CBD products. I was a CBD skeptic. I had had some experience trying like tinctures before and et cetera, et cetera. These guys are fans of the show. They wanted to advertise. I tried out their products. We all did to a certain extent. And everybody loved them. They are the hemp that they grow is pesticide free. They practice regenerative farming practices that they work with the University of Vermont to do. They are majority employee owned, $15 minimum wage. So they got great business practices, but their products are amazing. I use their tinctures and their salves constantly, literally last night. And the salves I use now, it's supposed to be for muscle relaxant. I'm using it for like sometimes I get little patches of dry skin or eczema. But there are gummies, CBD gummies. They have great CBD infused coffee, Kenyan coffee. They have, I think it's a limited release that they're doing now. And they have pre-rolls, and they have flowers, buds, and stuff like that. We got this email last Friday from listener Bridget. I just smoked a Keef blunt per Matt's recommendation, This ish isn't effing around. I don't know why I can't say those swear words, but I'm not going to. And then they went on to say that the fun half was really funny. But the point is that smoking CBD is it's a weird experience. You get that sort of like relaxed buzz, but you don't get the mental high. Matt, talk about your favorite smalls.
Yeah, smalls, for people who don't know, they're these sort of sort of taken off the stem buds that you can put right in your grinder. Really pretty useful product line, I found out.
If you deal with like any type of muscle aches or stuff like that, I highly recommend the Solve.
Yeah, you might need it for pain.
I know. I just broke my toe. Not just the second, but last night. It has arnica. It has CBD. It is all of the products are really great. You're gonna love it. Left is best. Fans of the show, they want to use the coupon code Left is Best. One word, Left is Best. You get 20% off. Go check it out right now. sunsetlakecbd.com. Great products. Great company. Also, we've got policing problem in America, no doubt about it. Our sponsor this week, Future Hindsight, has a great interview with former Seattle police chief turned police reform advocate Norm Stamper. They discuss how our police forces got to this point and how we can use the pandemic to jumpstart meaningful, lasting reform. Listen to Future Hindsight wherever you get your podcasts or futurehindsight.com. Listen to Future Hindsight wherever you get your podcasts or futurehindsight.com. On with the show.
That means Monday is Casual Monday, Tuesday, Casual Tuesday, Wednesday, Casual Hump Day, Thursday, Casual Thurs, that's what we call it, and Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, December 11th, 2020. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. You're broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, staff writer with the New Republic, co-host of the podcast, The Politics of Everything, Alex Pareene will be joining us to look back on this week, to look forward to next week. Then later, in the fun half of the program, Matthew Film Guy will be here to talk about, I think, his film and what film we should watch this weekend. Meanwhile, the FDA Advisory Board recommends a Pfizer vaccine emergency approval. Shots could start with official FDA approval as early as Monday. Meanwhile, Mitch McConnell continues to block bipartisan compromise on the COVID economic relief. And 106 House Republicans sign on to the Texas Attorney General's election suit versus other swing states. And completely coincidentally, I'm sure the ongoing federal investigation into that very same Texas Attorney General happens to be heating up these days. Like something you would be wanting to look for a pardon for, maybe. The director of the CDC allegedly ordered the destruction of an email showing the Trump administration looking to change the scientific COVID findings the CDC had established. Meanwhile, Brandon Bernard killed last night, the 9th federal execution since Trump lifted the moratorium in July. Wilbur Ross has been subpoenaed by House Democrats for census data delay accounting. And UFC mixed martial arts fighters been found to allowed to sue as a class over the antitrust violations of the UFC. Meanwhile, a federal judge allows continued blocking of abortion restrictions in light of the pandemic. And the Supreme Court allows Muslim would-be informants to sue FBI, essentially for harassment. All this and more on today's program. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us on Casual Friday. Emma Vigeland is here. She can attest to the fact that I am wearing a soft-collared shirt. Emma, would you please attest to that fact now?
I will attest to it, and I think anybody with eyes can attest to it. The collar is especially soft today, so that means it's Friday.
Right, that's exactly right. It's Casual
the only
Friday.
way I can tell. Yeah,
that's right. It's the only way, and so we take this opportunity to dress casually around the office, although we're not, we're not around the office per se during COVID, but still maintaining some of the normalcy, which we hope to return to, 3 to 6 months from now. It would have been much higher, of course, had the Trump administration actually purchased enough vaccinations, but that won't happen. If the FDA does approve this COVID vaccine by Pfizer,
that would have been too competent for their taste.
Way too competent. If they do end up approving it, the vaccinations will start on Monday. They will start, obviously, with healthcare workers and then go to nursing homes. Healthcare workers, obviously, most exposed to it. It's you want to keep these people as healthy as possible, obviously, because we are about to enter into what the director of the CDC described as probably the darkest time in the public health history of the United States. We had nearly 3,000 people die yesterday, 2,923 directly attributed to coronavirus. We had 223,000 infections yesterday. Again, if you want to know how many people are going to be dying, anywhere from 16 to 21 days from now, take that figure, multiply it times 1.4, then multiply it times 1.4%, and then multiply it times 1.8%, and you will get a fairly good estimation of how many people are going to die 2 to 2.5 weeks from now.
It's a 9/11 every day, as they've been saying. I mean, that should be sobering. COVID is now the leading cause of death, passing heart disease in the United States. I don't know what else, what statistics are going to wake people out of this denial that they've been in, or the fatigue due to the protocols. But people seem to be immune to all figures at this point, no pun intended.
Yeah, and and some of it I would imagine is like, this is, a normal human response. I mean, I think I think after this, we're going to have epidemiologists and sociologists really determine that the second wave of these pandemics is largely less about biology and more about sort of sociology. But there is no doubt that the momentum driven by the Trump administration of denial is playing a big part in this, without a doubt.
100%.
And I have a million tabs open on my computer, and I was, every now and then I try and go through and close some of them. And I came across one that was open from September 17th, 2020.
This would bug me so much if I were on my tab closer.
And well, I'm glad. This is part of the reason why I do this, I think. Mark Knoller, former CBS White House correspondent, tweeted out on that day, Chief of Staff Mark Meadows says White House aiming to have 100 million doses of coronavirus vaccine ready to go by end of October. Says goal is to make the most vulnerable and highest risk people are vaccinated in that first group. Says up to 300 million doses would be ready in January. Well, it's stunning. Obviously the guy was just lying, because he knew at that point they had not reserved that amount.
Right.
They knew by September, sort of, I think, had at least a sense of which vaccinations were showing some measure of success. And
they're now saying 20 million doses by end of year, and that's from the administration. So don't even take that at face value.
Indeed. And then if we're lucky, we may get another 100 million doses through the first 6 months of 2021. That is in terms of the Pfizer vaccination. I would imagine soon we're going to be getting close to a decision on the Moderna vaccination. We will see. But turning our attention to the other sort of element of COVID, aside from the actual death, from the infections, but to the implications of trying to protect ourselves. Another reason why we have not been able to protect ourselves in the way that we should is because there has been an abject failure by our government to encourage protecting ourselves in a material way. And by that, I mean, we have not had any form of COVID relief economically from the federal government. Essentially, nothing's passed since April, and much of it is running out if it hasn't already. And there's an attempt to do so in the Senate. Mitch McConnell is standing in the way of a vote, frankly, on a compromise solution. It's unclear to me how many Republicans have signed on, but we know at least a couple have.
Right.
To this compromise. And it's a compromise bill. It's not, this is not something that Emma, you and I would choose, but it is something to get something out the door. Mitch McConnell standing in the way of it. Meanwhile, Bernie Sanders is trying to apply pressure as well. I mean, this is the way when you have Mitch McConnell on one side shutting everything down, very important to have people who are trying to pull the bill in a more humane fashion. Here is Bernie Sanders yesterday. Today marks the 1 year anniversary of his, I think it was a 10-hour filibuster on the sunsetting of the Bush tax cuts and allowing that to happen. But sadly, it did not. There was not enough that were repealed there or allowed to sunset. But nevertheless, here is Bernie Sanders explaining on Thursday why Americans need a $1,200 stimulus check.
The American people need help, and they need help now. In fact, there has never been a time in the modern history of this country when the American people were in more economic desperation and a time when people needed help. And if a government means anything, it means that we cannot turn our backs on tens of millions of families who today are suffering. So, Madam President, we have got to make sure that every working family in America, every working individual in America, receives at least $1,200 in direct payment. That is what we have got to do. We cannot continue the status quo of simply coming in here to work and then going home and going back on for our holiday. So, Madam President, I am going to do everything that I can to insist that we make sure that every working person in this country gets a $1,200 direct payment. And we're not going to go home until that happens. Madam President, thank you very much.
So there's Bernie Sanders arguing essentially that we need that $1,200 stimulus. That was part of also in the HEROES Act, if I remember correctly. It was obviously it was in the CARES Act, but it's also in the HEROES Act that the House Democrats passed over the summer.
And McConnell sat on for months and months.
And McConnell sat on for months. And then I think in the $2 trillion bill that Pelosi, or at least I guess proposal that Pelosi had in negotiations with Steve Mnuchin in the run up to the election, I believe that $1,200 was included in there as well. And so this is a clip from Wednesday. And when you talk about the forces, I mean, here is the problem, right? The problem is that the stock market is up. People who can work from home, people who have jobs like ours, we're working, we're okay, right? I mean, We're not necessarily. However, the flip side of that is that you have a huge spike in shoplifting of food. You have cars lined up from Massachusetts to Texas and to LA, lined up to get food because people are unable to feed themselves and their families.
1.4 million Americans filing for unemployment last week, over 19 million officially on unemployment. It's going to be higher because not everybody who's unemployed is filing for unemployment insurance.
And they can pass a $300 federal bonus on your unemployment insurance. But if your unemployment insurance runs out December 26th, like it's going to for 12 million Americans, that's not going to get you anything. And so the problem is that there is a huge cohort of people in this country who are just fine. And they are, in many respects, controlling the narrative. And you see people like Bernie Sanders and Katie Porter going out there and saying, this isn't stimulus. This isn't to get the economy going. This is emergency relief for people so they can actually like function and live their lives and eat or stay in their homes, et cetera, et cetera.
But it also would stimulate. I mean, the reason that Josh Hawley, who wants to run for president, the Republican senator, is working on this with Bernie Sanders is because not only would it provide relief for people, it would stimulate the economy, and also it's wildly popular. We saw that Trump got a bit of a boost from this. So Hawley wants to run in 2024. He signed on with Bernie here. And yet, because the Democrats don't have any sense of politics, they could have neutered the Hawley claiming of this idea in the Senate, right? That the Republicans, one Republican, one Democrat signing on to this. If the Democrats in unison said stimulus checks, but they don't want to do it. They want to keep it as vague as possible so Biden can claim victory regardless of what's in the bill.
Right. I think that's a big element as well. But yes, I agree. It will stimulate the economy. But the primary issue right now is really just getting people relief. But yes, of course, more money in the economy is definitely going to help. Here is an exchange from Wednesday, just to give you a sense of how much that impulse to not provide too much for people, because what if you overshoot and provide too much? How that plays out. This is an exchange between Stephanie Ruhle from MSNBC and Bernie Sanders. Let's play this clip.
Of the United States Democratic senators on board. The question now is whether or not Mitch McConnell is going to turn his back, as your report just indicated, on the incredible suffering that the American people, the working people, are now experiencing. Unemployment high. We have a record level of hunger in America. Millions of people are facing evictions. This is an emergency. Congress has got to respond aggressively to help working families. You know, Stephanie, I always get a kick. Here in Washington, when we go to war, there's endless amounts of money. Tax breaks for billionaires, endless amounts of money. Corporate welfare, endless amounts of money. When children are going hungry in America today, suddenly we don't have enough money. That's crap. That's wrong. And if we have got to stay here throughout Christmas, which is the last thing in the world that I would want to do, we are going to stay here because we are going to make sure that struggling working families in this country get the help they desperately need.
Senator, I'm not agreeing with you fundamentally, but I want to talk to you practically. You've been the lead sponsor of 422 bills during your 30 years in Congress, but only 7 of them have become law.
1 second.
Given that record and how...
Pause it 1 second. I think she meant to say, I'm agreeing with you fundamentally.
Right.
Not, I'm not going to agree with you fundamentally. But let's go back. And I should also tell you that, like, to have a graphic up for this, it didn't matter what Bernie Sanders was going to say here. Mm-hmm. And this is pretty stunning. Go back.
The help they desperately need.
Senator, I'm not agreeing with you fundamentally, but I want to talk to you practically. You've been the lead sponsor of 422 bills during your 30 years in Congress, but only 7 of them have become law. Given that record and how dire things are, as you just laid out, do you need to find another lane or take a different approach here?
I don't think that's the issue, Stephanie. I mean, you can ask me how many other senators have passed significant legislation in recent years. Question is, you could name post offices and so forth and so on. Some of the legislation that I've worked on, the Veterans Bill, for example, has been very significant in passing. But the issue right now is the United States Congress going to stand up for working people or not? And I am doing my best to rally not only Democrats but Republicans as well. Now, as you may know, the proposal that came out of the White House just...
All right. Yeah. I mean, we don't need to see his response to this.
I mean, he kept his cool.
Right. But the idea, and let's just put this up. I mean, because I've never seen anything quite like that before, where you have senators staking out positions. Obviously, I mean, I don't know if it's, I mean, I don't know how to even measure what he's proposing as being impractical. The entire Democratic caucus has been proposing this. He is demanding that it happens. It certainly is going to put pressure on Mitch McConnell, who is killing anything that existed. I mean, as a practical matter, this might be. I wouldn't be terribly surprised if he wasn't doing this with the encouragement of the Democratic leadership, so that they can sit at the table and say, like, hey, we've got someone on our left flank too. I mean, this is just. It's bizarre, but just as a practical matter, we prepared for this clip. That's why we have this graphic ready. Put it up. Sanders with the primary responsibility. Those bills. Very few bills are ever enacted, anyways. Here, the list of those 7 ones. Like he said, that the VA one, probably the biggest one. Let's move on. Let's see what the next graphic we have here. Here's Nancy Pelosi's record. 7 bills that were enacted. Now, the as a primary sponsor. I mean, look, this is it's a silly thing to even bring up, never mind in this context. And it shows you if there is that level, if there is this, I mean, I don't even know in what context this is impractical. Is it impractical because the Republicans won't do it? Or is it impractical because we don't have the money for it?
Well, he has a Republican signing on with him. This is the exact kind of bipartisanship. Josh Hawley is doing this with Bernie Sanders that usually cable anchors would be praising. But because it's Bernie Sanders, they have that graphic teed up there. And by the way, Stephanie is the anchor who talked about how she was offended by Biden's comments saying that this is Scranton versus Park Avenue, right? Saying, why aren't the wealthy represented in the Biden administration? So I don't think she actually fundamentally agrees with Bernie Sanders' proposal here. I think this is kind of her perspective. So let's be open about that when talking about the framing here. And also, Bernie Sanders has been known throughout his career. What was it? The Rolling Stone article about how he's the amendment king. Bernie has in the past tweaked massive parts of legislation to put little things in there to help working people. And yet that never gets the credit. And exactly there, right? Like, it's this circular conversation because Bernie Sanders was already disliked. So look, he never gets anything done. And here we go.
It's not even so much about, I mean, I think the, to frame it in the point of like Bernie Sanders is disliked, I think really what is even more relevant, and this is maybe what you're getting at, is that his issue set is disdained.
Right.
It's not that, maybe they dislike him personally or whatever, who knows, who cares? But the bottom line is that he's out there insisting on this demand, which of course it's not anything new. I mean, we have we've had Democrats propose this throughout the entire crisis. It is clearly needed by the American public. The idea that it's impractical, I still can't even wrap my head around it. It's like the idea that he isn't somehow inhibiting a deal getting made right now is absurd. Everyone knows it is Mitch McConnell who is stopping this deal. And to the extent that Mitch McConnell can be forced to the table, having someone to the left of where the negotiations are certainly helps it. That is actually one of the most practical things you could possibly be doing.
Absolutely. But it's all about passing legislation irrespective of what's in it. I mean, and that's like the kind of culture that really sucks in media.
But even if that's your assessment, that's what you want to do, having Bernie Sanders doing that at this time makes it much more likely that you're going to get that compromise,
especially when he's teamed up with a Republican.
Of course, it's pretty. I think what it is it is part of what we've seen, and this has happened from different parts of the Democratic establishment, not necessarily the lawmakers, but like, former economic advisors, guys like Jason Furman and whatnot. What you really don't want to do is you don't want to overshoot and give too much to people. I mean, to the extent that if we're going to err, we'll err on the side of being skimpy, because that suffering will be localized into, or I should say, will be contained within people in the lower 50% of the income distribution. And so that's not going to affect the economy. Right. I mean, that's basically the story that we're being told here. And that is the story that comes out of finance. But hopefully it will, Sanders will draw more attention to this and create more pressure on Mitch McConnell, who's got to worry about what's happening in Georgia. If you've got a Democrat out there saying, hey, Mitch McConnell is in the way of this, why don't we have those $1,200 checks? Look to Mitch McConnell right now. Then maybe things will go the right way in Georgia. We will get to Alex Pareene in just a moment. But first, I should tell you this, and this has been a big help for me ever since I've found it, because my daughter loves to do a lot of online shopping. So you're making your list for the holidays. And then imagine this, Emma, somebody comes in and says, here's a little bit of extra cash.
Nice.
For your holidays. Well, that's what Honey is doing. Is this the same Honey that automatically searches for promo codes? Yes, it is. With Honey, you can also make a list of all the holiday gifts you want from certain stores, and Honey will email you when the price drops on anything on your list. This is a new feature. All you got to do is add Honey to your computer, create a free account, throw some holiday gifts on your drop list, And also, when you do that, you are entered to win $1 million worth of gifts. Honey's going to randomly select winners and give them the money to help buy something on their list. No, wait, not up to 1 million, but they're going to help pay people to buy stuff on their list. So they're going to spend, I guess, $1 million. No purchase is necessary. You need a PayPal account to redeem the prize. Only valid in the U.S. Giveaway ends in December 21, 2020. So you get about 10 days to do this. There's going to be a lot of Legos on my list. I'm not going to lie. I have discovered that Legos are both make my son happy and also keep him busy. And then my daughter gets a lot of like clothes. She basically sends me a list every year now where it's like, I want this blouse. I want these boots. And she's going to get them. So, folks, check it out. Honey will save you money every time you purchase something, or can if there's any coupon codes out there. And like I say, they will let you know when the prices on the things you want to buy drop. Get Honey for free at joinhoney.com/majority. That's joinhoney.com/majority. So Michael would appreciate this. Michael, for a long time, tried to get me into meditation. And I'm not saying that I'm there yet.
Yeah.
But I've always been, here's been my big hesitance, right? Is that like the idea of sitting down and doing nothing for any period of time, I can't do that.
It's hard.
I've got too much to do.
Yeah.
I just don't have the time to do that. Like I say, like I watch television rarely, only like when my toe is broken. But Headspace is provides you a daily dose of mindfulness in the form of guided meditation in an easy to use app. But here's the thing that I really like about Headspace. And I don't know, I mean, other people can do this, but they have like walking meditation. So you see where I'm going with this? I walk to work, I can do my meditation. I walk home, I can do my meditation. Headspace is backed by 25 published studies on its benefits. They get 600,000 five-star reviews. They have over 60 million downloads. Whatever the situation, Headspace can really help you feel better. Need some help falling asleep? Are you overwhelmed? I just described, I think, 95% of the people who will ever hear my voice right now. Headspace has wind-down sessions and 3-minute SOS meditations for you. They even have meditations for kids. Works for you on your schedule, anytime, anywhere. And like I say, for me, it's on my walk. And they sort of like layers it in, right? Because I'm not good at this. Good at this. I have an agenda constantly, no matter where I am. You have your training
wheels on for meditation.
Exactly. I have my meditation training wheels on. And it's like, it's interesting. I'm walking down, and it doesn't matter really where you are walking. It works everywhere. It just gets you to be sort of more conscious of the present, essentially, I think is really what the best way for me to describe it. So check it out. You deserve to feel happier, and Headspace is meditation made simple. Go to headspace.com/majority. That's headspace.com/majority for a free 1-month trial with access to Headspace full library of meditations for every situation. This is the best deal they got offered right now. Head to headspace.com/majority today. And lastly, it's easy to get caught up in the holiday craze these days. It's also difficult, obviously, to get medical care. When do you have time to see a doctor? When do you feel comfortable? It seems impossible. Well, thanks to PlushCare, you can see a doctor right away. And whether you're at home, whether you're at the office, whether you're on the go, it doesn't matter. PlushCare provides virtual doctor appointments through your smartphone or computer. All you got to do is you pick a time that works for you. You book an appointment right online. With PlushCare, you can be diagnosed, treated, and even have a prescription sent to your pharmacy within just moments. PlushCare accepts most major insurance carriers. It's available in all 50 states. The doctors are here to help by discussing treatment options and providing prescriptions as needed. If you're having difficulty managing your emotions, PlushCare doctors are also available to help. You can schedule an appointment today to discuss your treatment options. PlushCare makes it easier than ever to take care of yourself inside and out. You can start your membership today. Go to plushcare.com/majority. You'll start your free 30-day trial. You have 30 days to try it out. That's PlushCare, PlushCare.com/majority for a 30-day free trial. PlushCare.com/majority. All right, let's welcome to the program Alex Pareene. Thank you for your patience, Alex. Much appreciated. Alex Pareene, of course, the staff writer for the New Republic. Not the staff writer, but I mean, in my mind, you are the staff writer.
The number one staff writer.
You're a staff writer, but for me, you're the staff writer. And also the co-host of the Politics of Everything. Alex Pareene, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sam.
You have really upgraded what you got going on there now.
I love your art. I was just thinking that.
Thank you. Well, yeah, only the best for you. I've colonized the living room, which I've seized from my wife. This is usually where she works, and but just for you, I decided I would take the nicer spot today.
All right. Well, fantastic. You look great. Much appreciated. You know, I really wanted to speak to you this week because there's a theme running through the week on some level. Of course, you know, we obviously have devastating COVID numbers. We have the Attorney General from Texas trying to get a case at the Supreme Court. I don't think it's going to go anywhere, but 106 Republicans have signed on to it in the House, filing an amicus brief. We will talk about that, but I want to talk about a piece that you wrote a couple of days ago. This is a story we just touched on briefly, but it's been something that I think is very problematic that that is part of a larger whole in terms of our elites in this country, right? I mean, we have Rudy Giuliani going to the hospital saying that he's a celebrity, so he gets special treatment, and he had COVID. But you wrote a piece on big law, elite law, essentially, and this has been, one of those things that's sort of hard to peg a story to,
right?
Because you see the impact of this through like tweets and whatnot, but talk about sort of like the backdrop a little bit. I mean, in many ways, this story is indicative of a larger problem.
Yeah, sure. So I'm sure most of your audience saw at least something about the story about a Supreme Court hearing arguments in this case where these former child slaves, people who were basically enslaved as children and forced to work for no money on cocoa plantations, were suing Nestle and Cargill for aiding and abetting their enslavement, and obviously these plantations are located in, was it Sierra Leone? Where? I think I know the people were from Mali, but they were kidnapped from Mali and then sent elsewhere. But so they're not American. So that's right. So they're trying to sue these corporations that profited from their enslavement. And Nestle and Cargill's defense basically relied on going to the Supreme Court, arguing that these people didn't have the standing to sue them, essentially. And arguing the case was Neil Katyal, who is one of the most decorated attorneys in the country. He's won like Lawyer of the Year awards, basically. And he's been in and out of Democratic administrations, Obama and the Clinton administration in the Justice Department. And he was Obama's acting Solicitor General for a time before he returned to private practice.
Solicitor General is essentially your attorney who represents the government, often at the Supreme Court. I mean,
yeah.
But good.
Yeah. And he's very much a sort of embodiment of that element of the Democratic establishment. I know we always talk about how there are different Democratic parties, but he's a Washington fixture. He has worked at the highest levels of government, and he's been a solid and consistent Democrat his whole career. And this last few years, he's made a living being a sort of big anti-Trump pundit. He writes op-eds, he goes on TV. And he's really stoked that sort of resistance thing to become a hero among many people who really don't like Donald Trump. So anyway, he goes before the Supreme Court and basically makes this insane case for corporate immunity, basically saying that no foreigners could sue any corporation for any reason. It got to the point where justices were asking him, so if an individual enslaved another individual, could you sue that individual? And he was like, yeah, sure. And they're like, if 4 people conspire to enslave someone, could that person sue them? And he's like, yeah, sure. If those 4 people formed a corporation that enslaved someone, then could you sue? And Catchall was like, no, at that point, no, you can't. So, they were arguing according to this, fairly arcane law, but that law, if you actually read it, basically is supposed to give people the right to sue American corporations when they are harmed by them. But anyway, I wrote a piece basically saying that, it's very bad that incredibly highly decorated Democratic attorneys are making careers out of working for giant law firms that argue cases like this. And I think it's political. I think it's ideological. And I think attorneys have a very ideological understanding of their job that allows them to forgive their own for making morally heinous arguments. And the point of my piece was that lawyers have taken this right to an attorney that is written into the Bill of Rights for when people are being prosecuted for crimes by the government, for individuals being prosecuted for crimes by the government have a right to an attorney. That's written in the Bill of Rights. And basically, over the course of 100 years or so, they turned that into, we have a right to take any client we want and make any argument on their behalf and then not face criticism for it. Because, when left-wing and liberal people were saying Neil Katyal's arguments are morally repulsive, there were all these attorney types would be like, no, you don't understand how the law works. He has to be an advocate for his client. He has to make the best argument possible for his client. And, I don't actually think like a code that says he has to take big checks from Nestle and Cargill to argue that it shouldn't be possible for anyone to sue them. I don't actually think that's really a code worth defending.
Yeah, I actually had this debate with people about Harvey Weinstein and the moral reprehensibility of representing him in court or somebody like that. But
that's different.
I know it's different, right?
That is different because we are talking about there is a fundamental difference between a situation where the government is pressing criminal charges against somebody and everybody has a right to representation, and that is fundamental to our operations as a democratic society where we do not have so much authority placed in in the government. And I say this, I was raised by lawyers. I went to law school for a period of time. The legal institution is highly problematic in this area. And I would expand it a little bit too, because this is part of the same, I think, problem where we hear lawyers, when someone is brought up for Supreme Court justice or when someone is floated for AG, we hear from all these lawyers who are not left, but liberal avatars of the left or of the Democratic Party come out and say, hey, I can tell you this lawyer is a straight shooter. Or, right. I mean, we saw this. I mean, going back to like when Michael Mukasey was appointed, he's not going to be like the Bushies. Yeah. Or when Bill Barr was appointed, when Amy Coney Barrett, Brett Kavanaugh, there was always, you have some legal professors who do this, who have some bona fides on the liberal left, and they do this because they want to make sure that they have a pipeline to the court for clerks.
Yep.
But then you also have other lawyers who do this because they are part of this sort of cohort of legal elite where, Bill Barr, reasonable guy, takes the law very seriously.
Right.
And I mean, this is I just want you to focus on for a moment, Alex, how this is, the sort of, this isn't just a question of like, hey, this is morally repugnant, you shouldn't do that. There is a broader message being communicated that about corporations and
Right.
about the role of these lawyers in our society that I think is highly problematic and causing problems. I mean,
Right.
I mean,
I read for this piece, I read a little bit of legal history, and you can see how vital lawyers have been to the project of basically the expansion of corporate power over the last century. They part of their code and part of what they're taught in law school is to profess independence. That's part of sort of lawyerly professionalism, to say you're independent. But they have been, when you look at the history of big tobacco, it was highly paid attorneys that were devising these arguments that tobacco companies used to mislead the public for decades. And that was considered part of their work. And in more recently, people like Neil Catchall have been essential to the project of making it more difficult to sue a large corporation if you're an employer or a consumer or a person enslaved by a corporation. It's an actual project that these people are carrying out for ideological reasons. And then, because I think that they also happen to be professional Democrats, they don't expect people to, or they don't like it. They bristle when you actually say the politics you are doing right now is not, you are doing politics at work in addition to when you go serve in the government. What you have decided to do for a living is a political project as much as when you take pro bono cases or as much as when you serve in the Justice Department.
And their response to that critique is that you're being political. I'm actually just adhering to they honestly, there is a quality that they think that they're priests.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I'm inclined to sort of I certainly by the way that I was raised, I'm inclined to sort of to perceive the legal profession in that way to some degree, but there is abuse that is taking place. I mean, here's the thing. How is John Yoo, a professor at one of the most prestigious law schools in the country?
Yeah.
And this is, just remind people who John Yoo was.
John Yoo was the author of the justification for torture in the Bush administration, and basically believes in a completely insane idea of executive power that would shield any president from sort of any limits to what he could authorize or what they could authorize.
And the problem here is that there is, to maintain the code that says it is irrelevant what you're arguing in court in a civil case.
Yeah.
As long as you're doing your best.
Right.
As long as you're a qualified lawyer and you're being competent, the content of what you're arguing is irrelevant. I mean, it is very easy to see how defending people against that criticism leads to John Yoo getting made to be a professor at a top.
It's definitely this thing that I think is sort of ingrained in law students, where it's don't judge the content of the argument or the result of the opinion, but judge how well it was justified, right? And that leads you to defending some really awful things, and including being well, I don't agree with Bill Barr, but he's got novel arguments for his insane position about executive immunity,
And I guess I'm also very sensitive to this because there is this is such a knee-jerk reaction on behalf of lawyers.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to sort of divorce my
I've had this exact conversation with my own parents too. So we're both lawyers.
like I say, my father's an attorney. His father was an attorney. His uncles were attorneys. My great uncles were attorneys. My cousins were attorneys. Our attorneys. It's a small town or a small city, second biggest city in New England, but nevertheless, and they saw I remember as a child, one of the few things I remember from my childhood was it was like somebody died in our family when lawyers were allowed to advertise.
Oh,
there was a sense that this is and it's funny. I've actually had this conversation. I'll put that aside. But Fran Lebowitz actually cited that at one time that we spoke as being like the end of everything at that point, in terms of like the diminution of what it meant to be a professional when lawyers started to advertise. But that is how sacrosanct the law was held in esteem. I will have a conversation with my father where my father's like, well, I may not agree with Amy Coney Barrett, but she's a qualified lawyer. Well, what makes her qualified to be a Supreme Court justice if she withheld disclosures on her Senate interview, like multiple disclosures that were clearly not a mistake, but she didn't want people to know that she signed on to an abortion ad.
Well, it's also just this fetishization of legal intellect above all that that has nothing to do with the morality of the cases. And there's this cognitive dissonance that goes down, especially, what you were talking about, Alex and Sam, about it being intertwined with the Democratic establishment too, where they divorce the content of what they're arguing from the consequences of it. So,
right.
And this is because. Go ahead.
I think it's funny that you mentioned the thing about once lawyers could advertise, like that was a diminution of the profession. Because I actually think there's this really funny thing with how law is understood among elite attorneys in the U.S. that you can sort of trace. Basically starting in the 60s and 70s, then gaining steam throughout the 80s, like the creation of the trial lawyer as a villain. And then like on the one hand, like the trial lawyer became a villain, and then like the hero becomes the white shoe firm corporate attorney.
Without a doubt.
And then somehow those become the highest level of elite law are these people who just defend corporations for a living. And then the people who advocate for normal people and try to get things to trial are considered like the shysters
against corporations. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That was
with the exception of Aaron Brockovich, but yeah.
Well, but that is exactly what was imposed upon me as a, and it's not like there's major corporations necessarily that my family, but it is the bastardization of that legal precept.
Yeah.
That and frankly, my work on Ring of Fire Radio and going to the tort conferences are when I started to realize, like, if I had known this was an option, that was the sort of the narrow that there's a lot of people there who are there to make money, but there's also a lot of people who are just like, you can't believe the malfeasance that goes on in these corporate C-suites. You just can't believe it.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. There has been a reconstruction of like, what is the purpose of the law? What is, and what constitutes good legal practice, bad legal practice. It's interesting now because this is becoming, and Matt Stoller has written quite a bit about sort of big law. And this has been an area that has been unexamined. And in many respects, like, that's what's so interesting about this story. It's the first time that there has been an opportunity for people to address this sort of like simmering thing that you would occasionally see, like, Atrios write a blog post about it, that, or a snarky tweet that, and I can't help but think about the interview that we did with Brian Fallon earlier this year in his organization, Demand Justice. He was a former Obama official who realized that they really messed up when it came to what they did in terms of judges and their failures. And his organization was determined to try and make sure that there are no corporate attorneys who are appointed federal judges going forward under this Biden administration. There are so many. It is chock full of former corporate attorneys.
Yeah.
We need to have diversity in the legal profession because it also signals to people deciding which part of the legal profession I'm going to enter into.
Yeah.
If there is some type of career trajectory that is raised up and is, gets some benefits within the context of society.
Right. And, I heard from a few people who went to law school that, and have read myself stories that the really top tier schools, like they take all of these kids who want to go into the law to make a positive difference. And they basically like tell them, no, you like the positive difference you make will be by being a great lawyer at one of these big firms.
Yes.
Like that. And so, and it's like, it's neoliberalism, but it's telling them like, oh, no, you can divorce your sort of personal politics from the work, and like the important thing to do will just be to be a really great lawyer.
Well, we saw this
on the side.
We're seeing this now, like with the justification really last night of Amy Coney Barrett and other conservative justices' decision to execute Brandon Bernard and allow that to go through. Like, oh, we're divorcing the morality of it from it. We're just looking at the letter of the law, and we don't want to overturn this. When they make moral and ethical decisions all the time, and it's not connected to any coherent legal dogma, right? But they get themselves to believe that they are a part of an institution of rules when they're making substantively moral decisions every single day. And it's just, it's cultish in some ways.
Without a doubt. And this has been a big fight in legal circles for 30 or 40 years. The idea of sort of the Brandeisian, I mean, obviously it existed prior to that, but it has been coming up in the form of like critical legal studies versus classical legal thought, and the classical Brandeis brief, where you must look at the implications on real world people.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. Like actually think about the implications of your decision, which like
I never thought we'd be talking about Brandeis outside of my college classes and the Brandeisian thought.
But this is a really important, thing for people to be conscious of, because at the very least, we should not be celebrating people whose actions are subject to the same critique and review as anyone else. There is no, you are not performing last rites for someone as a priest. Like, I can understand it. Okay. You're going to go in and perform last rites, for someone who is evil or whatever, as a priest.
Or like,
that's not what's going on here.
A surgeon has a responsibility to keep the patient alive, even if they're operating on a murderer or something.
Exactly. And the idea that this is thrown up as a shield from this type of critique, it is really detrimental to our society. I mean, I know this seems, seemingly off topic for all the things that are going on right now, but this is going to be...
It's going to be on topic once, like, if, assuming Joe Biden does become president.
Yes, I think this is going to be a
topic.
big deal because, there's much of what we're going to see as politics over the next couple of years, even if the Democrats take the Senate, because they're going to basically get an opportunity to pass one big reconciliation bill. And that's basically going to be it. And then everything else is going to be on judges and whatnot. But the way that policy gets, the way the policy gets executed and what is taking place in our sort of like adjacent to government, but is still very much of the fabric of the way that both our politics and our government works, is really important for people to focus on. I can't tell you how much I appreciated that article.
Oh, thank you.
So we just got a couple more minutes, and let's talk about this sort of, we're getting, on some level I could see a parallel. Maybe I just see it everywhere with this whole thing with like the outrage that 106 Republican lawmakers have signed on to this Ken Paxton lawsuit coming from the Texas AG. Incidentally,
Texas suing the other states' rights Republicans all the way.
And let's be clear. I think everyone knows that on some level, this is Ken Paxton, a little bit worried about the federal investigation that's been ongoing that actually crescendoed yesterday when they had they basically subpoenaed his records. But he could be looking for a pardon. But this idea that like people are just like, can you believe democracy is being attacked by these 106 Republican House members? I mean, I think it's a good thing to say, but it's also sort of like, when are we going to accept that the Republican Party is the Republican Party?
Yeah.
And why do we need the Lincoln Project to come out and tell us how upset they are about this thing that they created?
Right. I mean, that's been the tension a lot recently, is like to be like, and I think, for those of us who have been observing the extremism of the American conservatism for a while, you do have to regularly be like, I'm not at all surprised that all of these elected Republican officials are like trying to overturn the election. I'm not surprised, but I still acknowledge that it's very bad for democracy. And it's like it's like honestly kind of a hard line. Because I don't want to be the cynic who's like, oh, you're surprised that they're anti-democratic, because like, it should be upsetting and it should be shocking.
Well, it's not even a question about like, oh, I can't believe you're not surprised. It should be like, okay, here is evidence number, 5,633. How about now you accept the fact that this party is, and this ties in, you know what, let's take a quick break because I want to talk about the audio that came out from Joe Biden this week.
Oh, yeah.
And because it seems to me all part and parcel of this same theme. We got to take a quick break. We'll be right back in a second. So audio was leaked this week, and I always get curious as to like how audio leaks. Was this on purpose or was it not on purpose? I mean, who knows, right? But it was a Zoom call with civil rights leaders and Joe Biden, and Joe Biden sort of waded into and wanted to sort of like both say that Democrats were killed by the defund the police thing. There's plenty of data out now that suggests that's absolutely not the case. Yeah. Stanley Greenberg had a great piece recently saying that, I'm sorry, that's just not what happened. Yeah. But putting that aside, he also then sort of unprompted went into this whole thing about my progressive friends, I don't know who it was he was talking about. My progressive friends want me to do stuff by executive action, and that's against the Constitution. I'm not going to do it. Like that to me is the flips, like the flip side of, first of all, it's not unconstitutional.
No.
And any more so than, Nancy Pelosi arguing back in the day that, if we impeach Donald Trump, he won't be able to be criminally prosecuted. It's not unconstitutional, but it seems to me part and parcel of the same thing where it's just like, we can work with the Republicans.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. There was that story. It must have been a Bloomberg story because I didn't actually read the whole thing. But it was like, well, they got the paywall. It's a very difficult paywall. But it was like Biden is, he's going to like appoint basically an ambassador to conservatives or something. Like I don't know. It was just a very strange. Like he's going to have someone in his cabinet whose job is to reach out to conservatives. And like, I mean, we are at a point. My colleague Osita Nuevo wrote this. I think nearly the beginning of the year. Like we actually have to talk about how we are going to defeat the Republican Party, not how we are going to.
Piece. Yeah.
Like we need to actually talk about how, like, Democrats need to actually think in terms of how are we going to defeat this malignant force that is the modern Republican Party. Not and for far too long, the only way they have thought about politics is how will we operate within a world in which they are dominant. How will we sort of eke out our wins in a world in which Republicans are naturally in charge of things? And they just they actually need to reorient their thinking to like, obviously they're not governing partners, but like at this point they are a like actual threat to the stability of the country and to the democratic order, and like we need to actually politically defeat them.
Do you think it's possible for this generation of Democrats to make that turn? I mean, because I am increasingly believing that like the problem is to some extent ideological. I definitely think it's ideological, but I also think it's like so rude. Like you could pursue you could be them, pursue your ideology, and also sort of like exert a little bit more power and partisanship and still pursue your ideology. I mean, but it's almost like they're even like, I don't know, abdicating their own responsibility to carry out their own ideology. Maybe that's an easier way of doing it. Right. I mean, I think all those are valid perspectives on it, but I look at this story about Dianne Feinstein this week. Yeah. Where she, they're former staffers are having to leak, like she doesn't know where she is, essentially, to Jane Mayer in the New Yorker. And I go like, this is a very clear case of a generational problem.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. And I think that like, it's definitely, I think it's separate from ideology. I think that just like you said, there is an ideological element to it. I think that there's a part of the sort of moderate democratic worldview that requires a Republican Party to work with in order to beat back the left. I think that that's a given, but like that requiring a Republican Party to exist that can be worked with, like stopped working during the Bush years, basically. During the Gingrich years, practically. Yep. And I think it is. I think it's like you have most younger liberals who aren't even that radical, like have not seen in their lifetime a Republican Party that can be quote unquote worked with. And I think that that's like totally a generational thing.
Definitely. And also, I mean, sorry, we're just seeing this with Whitmer. We talked about this on the show. And there we go. We are of one mind now. That, you don't even need to be an AOC in terms of your politics to fight Republicans on the battlefield of politics, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think one of the things that this Biden presidency, assuming it actually happens, I think one of the things I think perhaps the real story in terms of the Biden presidency from the perspective of progressives. I mean, once we get past like, okay, no Donald Trump, great. But in terms of like the dynamic that's going to play out is there's going to be a lot of these fights and arguments that are going to start at day one. In fact, they've already started in a way that they never did under the Obama administration.
I don't remember this much arguing about the cabinet.
Not even close. Yeah. There was not this type of scrutiny on transition, none of it. Yeah. That on day one, there is going to be, the Biden administration is going to be one where we get a very clear delineation between what these factions of the Democratic, that build up the Democratic Party want. We have to say goodbye to our viewers on Peacock. Again, the show plays 5 and 10 p.m. on the Peacock app, the Choice channel. We will see you folks on Monday. Thanks for joining us. And for the rest of you, specialer people, we will stay here. But I mean, don't you think that's going to be the case, Alex?
Absolutely.
That this is like, I mean, I just remember I was naive during the Bush years. Like, there were people I would have on the radio show or people who were on other shows who we were fighting George Bush tooth and nail on Social Security in 2005, right? They wanted to privatize Social Security, and there was a real concerted effort. In fact, it came out of Josh Marshall's blog at the time, where he used the blog to whip essentially, or to get a whip count of and force Congress people to in their districts, Republicans for the most part. Where do you stand on privatizing Social Security? And that, became the basis of a big fight and that beat back that privatization. And then years later, I'm like talking to some of these people, these, liberals. I mean, I guess, Jonathan Alter comes to mind, who guy wrote a book on FDR, right? I mean, it's not like, and he is like, we had a conversation at the MSNBC Green Studio, their Green Room or whatever it was, like, he's like, I don't understand why, the left is so chaste about, cutting back on some expansion of Social Security. I'm like, what? And, to his credit, he came on the show and we had a debate about it. We had a debate about Medicare. And I think on some level, I didn't see as much of that from him. I mean, I think he was sort of cloistered and he did not promote that as much. And then, that line of thinking. And then within 3 or 4 years, 5 years from there, maybe it was like 3, you have the Senate caucus voting to expand Social Security.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's related, but I'm saying like that was the point being that there's this clarifying moment, when you come out of a conservative governance where you start to realize that, how aligned you are with people that you were fighting against the administration with. And I think that's like,
that's, yeah. And, it's like, right. To describe my own sort of naive moment, it felt, 2008 felt a lot like, this new ascendant wing of the Democratic Party has beaten back Clintonism, right? And then, it turned out to be much less of a break than we all thought. But that's also why it felt like that wasn't, that's also why it didn't feel like it was the time for, having these arguments. But that's not like this time around. That's not like a lot of segments of the Democratic Party coalition did not get their first choice and are well aware they didn't get their first choice. And I think that we're going to see it's going to be more acceptable to have these sort of arguments in public, and we're going to have more of them. And who, again, I don't know how productive it will be because so far the Biden administration appears to be really, really stubborn about not giving in to progressive demands on the cabinet and things like that. But there's definitely going to be more arguing about it this time around than there was in the first Obama term, I think.
All right. Well, Alex Pareene, thanks so much for your time today. Much appreciated.
Of course.
Folks should check out. They should, what I always do is I just go to I have your page bookmarked.
That's fine.
Waiting for you to drop your story. But also folks can check out The Politics of Everything, which is a weekly show, right?
Bi-weekly.
Bi-weekly. What does that mean?
Every 2 weeks.
Jeez, man. Really,
we're trying to put out a magazine too.
Just trying to chill, right? Just chilling.
Do a once a quarter podcast.
I would love to, frankly.
No wonder why you got so much time to set up your
your posters,
my home studio, my posters.
Got a lot of time. All right, appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you, Alex Pareene. And do we have Matthew Film Guy?
Yes, we do.
Look at that. Matthew Film Guy promoting the Ted Alexandro show. Oh, wait a second. But don't we have something else, Matt? Hold on, Matthew Film Guy. Pretend you're not here.
Yeah, give me 1 second on that. I forgot all about that.
Pandemic head.
I have severe pandemic head today.
Let's do the intro after we do the cold open with Matthew, maybe.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. Matthew Film Guy doing his, he has his Majority Report, what do you call those again? Bandanas.
Yeah, put the glasses over the bandana so they don't fog.
Yeah.
That's horrible
Matthew,
about the
Film
mask.
Guy, let's talk about this. What do you have a problem when you go out with the fogging of the mask?
You're muted.
You're muted.
Yes, most definitely. I struggle. Although I bought one that's sort of more form-fitting when I'm really out there in the world. I
did too, but it still fogs my glasses no matter what.
I find that if you don't look down, if you make sure you look straight out, that helps. Because looking down, like I'm walking the dogs.
I'm always looking down.
Keep your head up, kid. Come on.
I know. My neck is bothering me because I'm always just on my phone or whatever.
Right. You got to hold the phone out like this. Yeah, it's a struggle. I've started to just put contacts in if I know I've got to go in somewhere and do something.
Yeah.
Yeah. I I've been contemplating doing the contacts thing, but I don't really have any. Like the contacts I have are from like literally like 2012 maybe or something like that. And I'm like, I don't know if I should put these in, but it's a real problem because I'm old and my glasses are progressives. And
everything with you is progressive.
Everything's
I don't really
progressive.
even know what that means,
Okay,
to be honest.
it means that like if I was my age
like
25 years ago, I would have bifocals.
Right.
But instead, my prescription changes. That's why sometimes I'm like, why is Sam doing this? It's because actually
I do this.
The prescription here is different than the prescription down here. So if I want to read something in a specific way, I need to shift my glasses. And so the whole thing where you put your glasses over your mask like that and push it in, which my son Saul does. He's got the whole thing down. I can't do that because then I can't, like the focal length is all screwed up.
Yeah.
And I can't see
my
anything.
eyes are going crazy. I can't see. God damn it.
Exactly. This is where Michael would be making fun of me in a big way. But it is a real problem. It is a real problem, and it's even more of a problem in the cold. I mean, when it was over the summer, I was like, this is not going to be a problem. People talk about glasses fogging up. But
yeah.
Now it's
and I've bought at least 3 masks that claim fog proof. It's nonsense. Nonsense. They're less, but there's nothing. There's no solution. And I tried the soap on the lenses. Forget it.
Did you try that?
Yeah. It lasts for like, I don't know, 15 minutes.
Soap on the lenses?
Yeah, if you
dishwashing
do a
soap.
Thin film, so you don't like completely wipe it off, so it's still clear. But even that is,
That sounds like maybe it shouldn't be by your eyes, but I don't know.
Well, I get dizzy and I pass out, but I can see for like 15 minutes. It's great.
Matthew Film Guy, try bleach.
I've tried that. I've tried applying it directly to the eyes. And
have you tried injecting it? it?
No, I'm afraid of needles, or otherwise I would.
Okay, so do we have the Matthew Film Guy? I've been vamping for a long time.
Are we on? What is this?
All right, Matthew Film Guy.
I got it right here.
Okay.
Here we go.
Is this Emma's first time here?
Matthew the Film Guy is choosing your streams. Cassavetes on Netflix and other such themes. Maybe you'll watch one and learn a few things. Please recommend me a movie to stream. Matthew, please recommend me a movie to stream.
Who is it?
Matthew, Film Guy.
Emma, is this the first time you've heard that?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Please recommend me a movie to stream.
Yeah. This segment started back when streaming movies was like a new technology. I mean, 10 years ago, honestly. And it was like, what should I stream? Because I couldn't, because I went through having a kid. I've had a kid under the age of 7 now for 15 years. And that's a long time. And so I couldn't go out to the movies. Now, of course, I can go to the movies because I'm not with my kids as much as I used to because I've created a broken family, and now I can't go to a movie theater.
Well,
just in time for the movies to end completely.
Yes, exactly.
So Matthew, what is as the film guy? What's your take on HBO Max just releasing all those movies at once? Are they releasing them all at one time?
Yeah, all at once. So listen, I am an HBO Max subscriber. So on the one hand, very selfishly, I'm like, oh, I'll definitely stay home and watch those movies. And I was almost definitely probably not going to go see those in the theater myself anyway. But look, I'm a little bit.
I will remind you, it's Matthew Film Guy, not Matthew Movie Guy.
No, but I go both ways. You know that, So listen, it's a little bit of hurrying down the doomsday that was already coming.
Yeah.
And I still am a huge believer in movie theaters. Like as long as like everyone's phones are off, everyone's not talking, everyone's paying attention to the movie, everyone went to the bathroom before the movie started. All right, maybe that's a little going too far, but believe in the theater experience. I just think it's going to actually result in ticket prices going to be more like what you go see at like an iPick or an Alamo Drafthouse, where it's like $20, $25 for a special movie event, and you get food and all that stuff. It's going to have to change. So I don't mind not seeing Matrix 4 in person.
Is Dune also coming out on HBO Max?
I didn't hear that one.
Maybe. I don't know. I saw on the if I really wanted to see Dune in theaters. That's the thing maybe I miss most to do in the pandemic is go to the movies.
I mean, honestly, the last movies that I saw were the spectacle ones, you know, the big screen ones that you want to fill your whole peripheral vision and so on. And there's only so close I can sit to my flat screen TV.
There are still psychos that go and like sit in mass in the movie theater. It's just that's not going to be my decision.
That's psycho. I'm not going I'm barely going to the grocery store right now, let alone to a movie theater. I'm catching up on a million. Huh? Yeah, they're heating up. Yeah. They're heating up. So this is like it's like a great time because there's less to do in terms of like responsibilities in some ways. So I can catch up on a lot of movies, but it's also a terrible time to actually go and see a movie in a theater.
Yeah.
But yes, Sam.
Well, speaking of movies in a theater, last week you had some news for me that we were going to have you on the show, but it was too late. And
it's fine. It's still there.
Yeah. So what do we got? What's the big breaking news story you have for us, Matthew, film guy?
This just in, the movie that I've been talking about for 12 months straight has finally gotten a release. Black Bear, starring Aubrey Plaza, directed by Lawrence Michael Levine, is out now on all VOD, video on demand streaming platforms. That's right. You
didn't send us a trailer to play?
Where's the trailer?
You can just Google it up real quick. Black Bear trailer. It's right there. It's wonderful. Yeah, that would be wonderful. I'll vamp a little bit while you grab that. It's easy. And actually, it is playing in about a dozen art house theaters right now around the country. Smaller theaters that I guess are being very careful about their social distancing. But one of them is actually the Cedar Lee, which is in Cleveland, which was like the first art house theater I ever went to. So it's sort of like
no relation.
No, it's Cedar's CEDAR. As
right.
In the,
I just want to make that clear.
Yeah.
Well, I do love Aubrey Plaza. I mean, who doesn't?
I don't
Sam
know.
Didn't know who she was.
She's from Parks and Rec. Sam, you watch that show?
No.
Yeah, we've been down this road. Here you go. Check out the trailer, folks.
All right, here's the trailer.
I didn't edit the trailer, but it's genius.
All right, this Matthew Film Guy did not edit the trailer, but he did.
I edited the movie.
Edit the movie. Is that Audrey? What's her face?
Aubrey Plaza. Yes, that's her, Sam. And the music is amazing too. The soundtrack just came out today.
You're Allison?
Yeah. You're Gabe? Hi, I'm Allison.
Oh, I know. I'm Blair.
You're really pretty.
You are too.
You used to be an actress and now you're a director. Why'd you give it up?
I didn't.
So, do you guys have a plan for this place?
I don't really know what we're doing.
We were living in Brooklyn and it was getting so expensive. And we weren't really working, so...
No.
I figured if I never learned how to cook, then I would never become a housewife.
You're really hard to read.
Yeah, you know what? I get that all the time.
Do you find it weird, acting in your own films?
I actually find it kind of humiliating.
Roll sound.
Mark. Okay, whenever you're ready. Action. You don't think she knows what I'm up to? She's oversimplifying a lot.
It's just so rare to pick a real artist's brain. How can you make something if you don't have anything to say?
I have something to say. I just think the movie is the only way to say it.
It's like she can't stand the fact that I have a single thought about this world.
No, it's that I can't stand the thoughts about the world that you have.
This has been so fun.
You don't love me anymore. Just leave me alone.
Now I'm wondering what kind of mind games you're playing with me.
He's my husband, okay?
Blair, can you calm down a little bit?
Me?
I've been lying since the second I got here.
You're in love luck with her, you are. I know it.
This is what you wanted, okay? This was going to ruin us. Okay, cut.
I just want to be normal people again.
Wow.
So you did the editing for that?
I edited the film. Yes, thank you.
It looks amazing. Like, it looks very unique. I'm pumped. That's amazing.
I get the
Congrats.
sense that like we're seeing both clips from the movie within the movie and the reality. That's what's and it's one of those jobbies, isn't it? What's
Yeah.
It's
real?
one of those jobbies, yes.
Is it like a Tropic Thunder thing where they don't? Well, you can't tell. Or they don't know they're actually in a movie.
She's the dude playing the dude disguised as the other dude. You mean?
Also, I love Christopher Abbott. Great actor too.
My
Christopher
sister
Abbott,
has
Sarah
just,
Gedd. Yeah.
My sister has just texted me. She said, this popped up. I've listened to at least 3 shows in which Aubrey Plaza comes up and you don't know who she is and everyone tells you who she is. You know, I've got so much to remember. Like, why would I remember that?
No, I know. It's almost like you're making a deliberate effort at this point not to know because you've been told so
I'm
many
not.
times.
It's like
But you're in like the comedy space. She's in, sort of.
He was gone by the time she was ascendant.
Oh my God. Are you kidding? When I was in the comedy space, she was probably like in elementary school.
Well, I mean, I don't know. You know people now still. She's kind of big. I don't know.
Sam, when I did Bad Situationist and you cast me in there and I was acting a little bit, I'm like, oh, well, maybe I should take an improv class. I went and took an improv class with Armando Diaz, and she was in that class. She was like 19 years old.
Oh, really?
And even at that time, my first ever improv class, at that time, it was clear she was going to be something special. She was amazing. And a lot of people didn't necessarily know that she had these kinds of dramatic acting chops. This movie is also very funny in a lot of places, but it is a tour de force. A lot of the references we had were like Gina Rollins, Woman Under the Influence, Opening Night, these kinds of things. So there is I would just say, without giving too many spoilers, because part of the fun is the sort of funhouse Hall of Mirrors
right,
structure.
I get that sense, yes.
But it is...
you don't know when you're in the movie
teaser.
and when you're not in the movie.
I'll just nod and smile. Yes.
Okay.
She was dramatically really good in that movie Ingrid Goes West too. That's another little indie one where she's good.
Yeah, I keep hearing about that, and I definitely have that on my list.
Did she remember you from that improv class?
I don't think she remembered me, but she certainly remembered the class. And actually, when we met on set, because I actually was up there on set when this was happening, which is rare for an editor, but I reminded her, and she's like,
"Is it that rare these days?"
Well, you're right. It's becoming more
because you can actually like download and input. Like, what did you shoot that on?
Digital, obviously, high definition, an Arri 2K camera. Yeah.
And so you can actually input that and log it and begin to do cuts so that you get a notion of like what you need to go back and do pickups, right?
That's precisely what I did, Sam. Exactly right. We were able to do reshoots in the last 3 days while we were there based on things that I had cut while we were there. But when I said to her, do you remember that class? She's like, oh yeah, you look familiar. So at least she was nice enough to lie to me that way. But actually, she's such a cool person. We've been sharing pictures on Instagram. People can go to my Instagram at Langdon Boom and see some behind the scenes pictures and stuff. And she's been sharing some of the pictures.
Has she bought anything from your eBay store?
No, I've really got to work our way up. We don't have that kind of relationship yet, but eventually I'm sure she will. But like maybe this, if I don't really ruin it. But anyway, she's amazing in this movie. Like you said, Chris Abbott is amazing. Sarah Gadon, also just 3 genius actors. And Larry Levine, who wrote this, he's also an actor, and it just understands it's an actor's movie, despite having this really kind of brain teaser structure to it.
I also get some Z for Zachariah vibes, which is also I don't know if you saw that movie, but that's
no.
It's a three person kind of claustrophobic movie. Hey, I'm not lying. I watch a lot of movies.
That's great. Well, Emma, I can't wait for you to see this. I can't wait for other people to see it. It's been getting great reviews, 88% on Rotten Tomatoes for a weird art house movie. I think that's pretty thrilling.
Pretty good, man.
And people are really digging in. Like if you go on Letterboxd, people can also follow me on Letterboxd at Langdon Boom. I'm Matthew Film Guy on there. And just, the kind of just theorizing and insights, and it's ambiguous, so it can hold sort of different interpretations, but it's just, it's also in its DNA is like Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, like the sort of like, dinner party gone bad kind of vibe. That's part of it too. So it's really great seeing people.
I have to say,
reactions.
sometimes it's difficult in trailers to pick up on this, but the acting does look exceptional.
Yeah, and listen, I'll put it to you this way. Everybody knows that the editor is the unsung hero when it comes to making a movie. People who know films.
And now that you're tooting your own horn, you're the sung hero.
That's right. I will. This is time to be sung. Let that which is unsung be sung.
I don't think I've ever seen you so like sort of effervescent.
Oh, this has been the best week ever. I mean, on the one hand, the pandemic being what it is has robbed me of some red carpet events and parties and all that kind of hobnobbing stuff. But what it's done is it's meant that this is one of the few movies that people are actually able to see right now, new movies. And it's just been really fun seeing.
That's right. This must have been just like right in under the wire, right?
Yeah, we finished. Well, we finished in August and we made it into Sundance in January, and that was the last film festival. Literally, we left Sundance thinking like, did we get a disease there? Like it was like that was right as things were starting. In fact, one of the other actors who's a writer in the movie, we kept thinking like we should pitch like Outbreak at a film festival as a film. So maybe the time has passed for that, but it was one of the last ones to happen, and so it got bought, and now it's on demand and sort of a captive audience.
Well, I was about to shift to what your movie recommendation is for this week, but I'm going to say that obviously the first thing that people should watch is Black Bear, and I can't imagine
Z for Zachariah, definitely.
Yeah, what?
No.
Z for Zachariah. That's what I'm going to watch. I've seen Black Bear, so.
Z for Zachariah is Margot Robbie, Chris Pine, and Chiwetel Ejiofor, and it's a 3-person kind of like locked in a situation drama, which is why I said.
Okay, I love that. Larry, the director of this movie, and I met in a class taught by actor, writer, director Tom Noonan.
Oh my gosh, so much of your career is centered around Noonan, hasn't it?
Literally. Well, it goes back to the genesis of Ray Carney. Ray Carney introduced me to you. He introduced me to Tom. And then Tom, we met Larry there. And now Larry and I have worked together a bunch of times. This is the first feature film of his that I've edited. But Tom's 2 movies, What Happened Was and The Wife, also both one location, interacting people, sort of, again, the DNA of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. And so, that's.
And this is exciting. Like, I don't want to participate into like, my perspective on show business is very much about managing expectations. But
absolutely.
I mean,
please,
a director shoots a feature film, it does well, that usually leads to maybe a second chance at another feature film. If you are the editor, I know that from my perspective, it's like I got locked into key people who worked with me, that you develop these relationships, it works, you like their work, and it becomes more of a collaboration as you move through. So I mean, this is like this could be the ticket to ride.
Well, listen, Larry and I, this is Larry's 3rd film, and he and his wife, Sophia, have made films together where he's written it and she's directed it. So they've made like 5 or 6 movies together, and I edited the trailers for most of those movies. And Larry
Who
and I
did the
are old
editing
friends.
for those other movies? Why didn't Larry use you before?
Just a variety of circumstances, different things, and
Well, I hope he's learned his lesson. I mean, this is his most successful movie, isn't it?
I'd say so, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely say so.
I'm pumped because the editing
What's
looks
different here?
snappy.
What's different
and
with this
cool.
equation? It's because you edited it.
Okay, I won't put I won't take that away from you, Sam, if that's your insight you want to share. But listen, Larry and I had such a good time making this movie, and we're just friends, so it's really fun to have a friend who you really respect. And honestly, he asked me to edit this movie, and he sent me the script, and I was ready to say yes before I read it. And after I read the script, I was so blown away, but I was also like relieved, because I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be a really good movie. Right. Like, thankfully this is going to be good. And the script is amazing, and it accounts for most of what's great about the movie. But listen, I'll toot my own horn a little bit. It was a wild shoot, the circumstances of the shoot, indie film, never enough time. We were out in the remote woods. Mary, my fiance Mary was in this movie. She has a role as one of the crew members on the film within a film crew. And oh my God, the nightmare scenarios that they had to be put through. locked.
Tell us some stories of that. I love production stories. You know that I had my share of.
Yeah, you know what it's like, Sam. And a lot of what's great about the film within a film is the truths.
How many days was the shoot?
It was like 20 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
And all the locations are up there, though, right?
Yeah, it was one location basically, but it was an hour drive from any civilization to get to this cabin. The cabin didn't have its own power grid, so they kept having blackouts during the show.
I mean, if it was my shoot, we would all be living at the cabin.
Some people were living at the cabin, but the three big names needed a little bit nicer accommodations.
I understand.
So were able to,
yes.
But Mary and I were living in this, like, it was basically like the visitor's cabin in this, like, it was like this bungalow colony that there were two of them next to each other that we all stayed in. And listen, my cabin was the highest internet service there, and it was like a 1 megabit DSL, so it was like very rustic.
Okay.
And so yeah, long hours, schedule changes. One of the actresses had to go to the hospital. She actually got sick. Paola Lazaro, who's actually now in Walking Dead. She's on Walking Dead after this.
Of course, Paola Lazaro.
Yeah, you like Walking Dead.
I do actually like that show.
She's the new girl. She's Princess, with the big machine gun. No, you didn't watch.
Oh yeah. I do know.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah, she's wearing the pink thing.
Yeah. She's a little bit touched, right? She's a little bit.
Yes.
She's been isolated too long.
Yes, it was typecasting for her. But anyway, hi Paula. But if it's an indie film, you're going to have more things to do than time to do it in. Actor schedules. Was it something I said?
Yeah, she didn't want to hear that.
Yeah, but yeah, it was one of those movies that just like, oh my God, it's a miracle when any movie comes out, and then
what
when
was
it
the
comes
shooting
out
ratio?
this good.
I know it's a little inside.
I didn't keep. I don't know, 4-1, 3-1. I mean,
4-1, 3-1. That's a little tight for video, right?
Well, it's some scenes there were 16 takes, and some scenes we only had 2 takes. But actually, since this movie is very actor based, it was a lot of long takes that were intercut. So they would roll for like 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah,
and which is part of what was great about being
improv or very
stuck to the script.
Very
stuck to the script. Despite Aubrey Plaza being a genius level improviser, it was, I'd say, 90%.
And does your director do like a lot of rehearsals beforehand, or is it just show
if
up
only he had the time? They had no time. It was like, here it is. They had script meetings, and you're on set. And listen, a lot of the first takes were not usable because they're working out the camera positions. They're working things out. It was all seat of the pants stuff, which as an editor makes it more fun because you're not just putting tab A into slot B and just piecing it together. You're actually able to build
to create stuff. Yeah.
And
did you do stuff like L cuts?
Of course, Sam. Of course you do L cuts. You do insert edits. You do everything.
What other podcast? What other political podcast exists where you're going to get like funny, like sarcastic, ironic, editing, film editing jokes like that? Did you do any L cuts?
Pac-Man's going to have me on to do a segment, but
Pac-Man's not going to come up with that.
No, definitely.
Nobody's going to come up with that joke.
No, that's
like a funny. Of course, he did L cuts, folks. You can't do a major motion picture without doing an L cut.
No,
my God.
We do pre-laps, we do L cuts, we do everything around
here. What editing
box.
Technology are you using these days? What did you use for that?
Adobe Premiere.
No more
in fact,
Final Cut Pro for people, right? That's out 10 years ago.
Moved on. Yeah. And actually at Sundance, I got interviewed by the Adobe Premiere people. They were thrilled that such a great movie was done on their product. And for some promotional consideration, I had a little video made. You can find that online somewhere.
Thank you, Adobe. Promotional consideration. They paid you?
Well, they gave me free use of their software for a year, which is like for an editor, that's ching.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
I mean, I would have done it anyway, but they were very nice.
I got to tell you, I am so excited for you. I don't think I have ever. Oh, it is the whole show is just like everybody's like, oh, I'm going to get lunch. I'll be right back.
It's fine. I'm just here to talk to you.
Well,
hi, Emma.
I'm back. I'm back.
How was lunch?
Matt took off.
I'm sorry. I usually use the restroom when we have the fun half break, but had to Had to leave at some point. Sorry.
That's okay.
We're still. I'm still. This is a part of Emma's training. This is like 90% of this is just bladder control.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
For this type of show.
That separates the pros from the amateurs.
Right.
Indeed.
I'm not there yet in my conditioning.
I've trained myself to urinate only once a week, and so I do that.
That's why you're looking a little
Matthew,
sallow.
Honestly, I couldn't be happier. I actually think that I'm going to watch this movie tonight.
Sam, do it. If there's never been a movie I've recommended that you watch this one, because
I'm definitely going to watch it.
I'm very excited about this.
And Matt needs to know, if Matt's not listening, Matt, there's some pot humor in this movie, so there's something for everybody. So Matt should really make note of that as well.
I also like pot humor. I've never tried.
Yeah, well, no, I already got you on the hook. Matt was walking away, so I had to.
Yeah.
Matthew, what about me? Why will I like it?
You like it just because you like intelligent cinema of the highest caliber. So
it does look really good in terms of like meta cinema. Yeah,
it's great, and you know it's not for everybody. It's been polarizing. You know, I've been laughing at some of the sort of normie reviews on Internet Movie Database, but it just goes to show you that you're seeing a movie that's taking chances, that's doing something, if not completely original, very, very risky to do to an audience, especially when used to the star quality of Aubrey Plaza. I feel like that's mostly the people who are like, this is not Parks and Rec, this isn't.
Yeah.
But it's a movie for people who like movies, who are really into digging in and wondering what's going on, and comfortable with ambiguity. Most of the movies that I show in my class, which by the way, let's hype the class for a second. You can go online on my Twitter and sign up.
I want to
take the
tell
class?
you a text from my other sister. Don't forget to tell Matthew Film Guy that Mom and I loved his class. He is really great teaching the class. Great with the yentas.
Yes.
Well, I got to tell you, Matthew, I'm very excited about this. This is one of the few films that I get the sense of like, oh, this is going to make me angry about not doing any more films, which rarely happens to me these days. I mean, mostly because Saul makes me watch horrible Avenger movies and like
Jim
that stuff.
Carrey and the Avengers.
Like the Avenger stuff is.
Oh, but by the way, Sam, I heard you say the other day you didn't want to watch Thor. You've got to watch Thor Ragnarok. That's definitely the best of all the Marvel movies.
I disagree with you, and
really?
I heard I saw Thor Ragnarok. It was funny, fine. It was fine.
Is this all going to involve I
like Black Panther best.
Like that? I'm sorry. That's just the whole portal.
It has the Hulk.
And huh?
But it's Taika Waititi, right? The New Zealand comedian director. He directed that. So it was Marvel giving their huge franchise to this sort of comedian, Flight of the Conchords type humor. So to see what that is like, you should see that if nothing else.
What's it called? The movie that Jojo Rabbit was lovely. That movie he directed.
That's still on my list.
Yeah,
that's still on my list. That's the
somebody
Nazi
recommended
comedy.
I watch that with Milo, but I to get to Thor 3, I got to do Thor 1 and 2, and I just really, honestly,
no, forget it. Forget Thor 1 and 2. Just go right. I think it's
Sam.
2.
I didn't see Thor 1 and 2.
My near OCD kid who's like, wait, no, we're not going to 3. We're going to 1.
Love them.
2,
Oh, this is good.
3. That's the way it works, Dad.
Well, if you can't submit to a rigorous viewing of the Avengers movies in order, then what are you even doing, Sam?
I mean, he's honestly,
for you.
Like, he's like, I said, please, let's just watch Batman. Batman is good. He's like, no. After the Captain America, we're going to watch Iron Man 1, 2, and 3. Then we're going to watch the Hulk. Then we're going to watch all 3 of the Thor movies. And
I love him. He's a kid after my own heart.
I'm not going to do that. And,
maybe you can learn a thing or two from your son about being rigorous and, being intelligent and consuming things.
Is he into Star Wars yet?
Oh, we watched every single one of the Star Wars.
Did he like the prequels? Because, I grew up with those, but they're actually objectively horrible now that I'm an adult.
They were horrible back then,
he had a critique.
Too. I know, but I thought they were cool then, right?
Yeah.
He had a critique. He has a good critique of this stuff. And I can tell you just it's like how much Lego building is going on during a movie. And then, like I say, dude, how can you say these Avenger movies are good? You built, look at you built during this. And he's like, well, I like to do both same time. And I'm like, you're not with movies that you like.
Genius.
All right, well, Matthew Film Guy.
I feel like
I'm
this
not going
spot
to
is
watch
going to
Black
be
Bear
Saul Film Guy is not right around the corner for this segment, I think.
Just a matter of time.
Yeah.
Again, congratulations. Folks can go to all of your different pages and follow you at Langdon
Prime
Boom.
Video, Apple TV, Fandango Now, Spectrum. All your cable companies have it. Video on demand. Please rent or buy it today.
And then don't
gonna be worth
hesitate
it.
to go on Twitter and give Matthew kudos. Matthew Film Guy, thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Emma. Have a good day, guys.
You too.
Folks, it is that time where we're going to move into the fun half of the program. First off, special episode of the Nomiki Show today. Nomiki. God, I don't know what happened. I lost it. Nomiki. On the Nomiki Show, not only will Astra Taylor be on, we've had her on to talk about You're Going to Miss Democracy When It's Gone or something to that effect. I can't remember the name of her book. Haddis Thayer is on, and Jamie Peck of the Antifada and the Majority Report, ladies and gentlemen, will be on the Nomi Key Show. You can check that out at youtube.com/the Nomi Key Show right after this one, 3 p.m. Also, you will see Jamie on there. She'll be talking about the Antifada. Matt, what happened last night on Left Reckoning?
Last night we got really deep into this Tyson betting on employees getting COVID thing and talked about Tyson's history of just being a massively, horrifically abusive company. And we also updated on the Argentine millionaires tax, which is a nice development down in South America, and a few other stories. So check that out at Left Reckoning YouTube page. And actually, right after this show, I'm going to be stealing the raid and doing a quick stream on Twitch Left Reckoning, where we're listening to Marx's The Gotha Program, a critique of the Gotha Program. So it's going to be a quick 45-minute stream right after this.
Folks, a reminder, your support makes this show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajority.report.com. When you do, you not only support the free show, you get extra content virtually every single day. Yes, it's true. Also, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. And don't forget to check out AM Quickie, amquickie.com. 7 minutes of headlines every morning. Before you wake up, it's even there. For some of you, anyways. And also, lastly, don't forget shop.majorityreportradio.com. You can get merch there. All right, folks. See you in the fun half.
In for it.
All right, folks. 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Alpha males are back. Boys back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you can imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boys back. And the alpha males are back.
Just want to degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Almost says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
I am a total cunt. Can we bring back DJ Dannerky's song, please?
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Danner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense.
Hey, folks, reminder.
I do not have Parkinson's.
And the alpha males are
psych. Fuck them. Almost says what? Almost says what? Hell of a lot of bank. 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 Hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter.
Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
The alpha males are back. And the Africans are black Africans. And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black.
See Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keep it at 100. Can't knock the hustle. Come on, fuck 'em. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday. Happy birthday to me, Jew boy. I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are back. Africans are black.
Come on. Come on. Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
Oh, yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is the fun half of the program. What a week. Here is a couple of IMs. The made-up states of New Nevada and New California filed amicus briefs in the Texas SCOTUS petition. How much more ridiculous can this get? I don't know those states. But wet, hot American Cedar. For more about how awful Katyal is, check out the A-Lab, All Lawyers Are Bastards podcast. Recently did a deep dive into his career. Defending child slavery for megacorps is just the tip of the iceberg for a guy who banked on being a SCOTUS nominee. Abe Lincoln, hey, Sam, what about the Batman with Jim Carrey as the Riddler? Would Saul watch that piece of crap? That's actually a great idea. Brilliant. Rube Davin, Emma is wrong about the Star Wars prequels. In light of the sequels, at least the prequels are original.
Yeah, I guess I hear what you're saying. I mean, I think the third one, where, the dramatic showdown on lava and where like every single one of Darth Vader's limbs or Anakin at the time, his limbs are cut off. I mean, that's pretty cool, but like the
prequels are better than the sequels.
The final sequel movie was horrible. I don't agree. I think The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi were better than all of the three prequels.
They were all the same movie.
The Last Jedi was very creative.
All right, I have to go back out and check that out. We'll see.
You really don't.
No, I don't.
And you won't.
But I won't. Emma, Revenge of the Sith is objectively the best Star Wars movie.
That's
says
what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Lamino. Boston Bernie Bro. Emma, as a fellow Norse descendant, doesn't the appropriation and misrepresentation of our ancient culture in Thor and other Marvel movies fill you with rage?
Yeah. I don't like the cultural appropriation, to be honest with you.
There you go. Anyone interested in seeing a wild Aubrey Plaza performance, check out Legion on FX or Hulu. It ran for 3 seasons, 10 episodes season. Truly a bizarre show, says Giuliani Defective Swimmers. Trumpy Bear, which Batman movie? I'd watch all of them. I like all the versions of the Batman, more or less. Although,
really?
But I think like
even the Ben Affleck one.
Oh no, not that one. The one that's like Batman versus Superman.
Mm-hmm. It was horrible.
Yeah, no, I won't.
I watched it on a plane.
I have never seen it. I won't watch that.
Do we have how many, Sam? Just so I can prepare myself, how many more IMs do we have about Marvel, Star Wars, or like other adult hobby nerd shop things?
You can't stand it?
It's gonna kill me.
Okay, but
Prague Rocker, have you ever considered having fellow Worcesteritian spelling Worcesterite, I think is what you're looking for, Charlie Pierce on MR? It would make for a lively discussion. I've had Charlie on before. Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't occur to me. What?
He's been on at Netroots.
Yeah, Netroots, I guess, when I run into him. But yeah, maybe he might be a good Friday guest. Best pronunciation of Nomiki you've rendered, Sam. Nomiki. And twice in a row to boot. Can't wait for the new Saul Guy film segment where it's just Saul telling Sam to watch all the worst movies, like Saul is one of the mad scientists from Mystery Science 3000. Doe Link, Vice News this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, did an episode regarding Brazil refusal to admit indigenous people to hospital provide medical care. Bolsonaro previously said he wants to get rid of them. they are among the most infected. Government says too many to treat. Cruel. So much suffering. Indeed. A Square. I think, Sam, I think a lot of the post-election discussion with the crew and invited guests has been enlightening and also allowed us to vent on the frustrations with the Dems. While I still think we need to continue to pressure and more inclined now to consider that developing, growing third party is now critical. Was it me or did Nelson sound muted yesterday? One options is necessary. She did sound, I know what you're saying, not literally muted, but she was, I have a feeling there's a lot of things going on. Maybe. I don't know. I did get that sense that she was like, towing a line or something. I'm not exactly sure. This is so bumming. This is me bumming out. Sam Cedar, bra salesman. It's Casual Friday, so we need a Giants prediction for this weekend from Emma. By the way, Sam, the Giants are better than the Patriots. Boston sucks. It's so depressing because the Patriots looked like they were going to at least tie the Cowboys record for 20 years in a row of winning seasons.
Yeah, I really pity you. Like, I really feel badly for Boston fans. It's been a real rough time. You know what, Emma?
Look, you have a very limited perspective on this.
No.
Do you know who Susan Olsen is?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, I was a Patriots fan during the whole Susan Olsen thing. Okay. Victor Kayam. I had to live through that whole era. All right.
Okay, no, I recognize that you had to live through
payoff.
You don't have to recognize it at all. that has no currency anymore, Sam. No one after this era.
I don't want to hear about Drew Bledsoe. I don't want to hear about any of it.
Bledsoe was the upside. I mean, it was
okay, well, you know what?
Flutie for a year even.
The Giants prediction is I don't make predictions about them because I'm superstitious about it, and I bet on like a lot of NFL games, but never bet on the Giants. I'm too emotionally invested.
You bet on a lot of NFL games?
Yeah.
Do you do it? Do you have like how do they do it today? They're like a football card. We used to.
It's legal in Jersey, so I mean, but like when I'm not in the legal vicinity, I'll have someone do it for me.
Jeez.
But it's not that much, but I make money every year because this is what I would be doing if I didn't do this. But like, then I watch sports shows and I'm like, I would not want to be the woman on ESPN. Like, they're horrible human beings, much of the announcer class and the pundit class. It's all just hot takes and everyone's disingenuous. But anyway, I can't predict about the Giants. If Daniel Jones's hamstring is still flaring up, I don't think the Cardinals are going to be as lackadaisical about their preparations as the Seahawks were, and they won't take it for granted. So I don't know. I think it's gonna be a close game.
Maddie Moron, the prequels are good. This is revisionism. Ruthless with Systems, the AM Quickie this morning came to me earlier than usual. What was great about it today was I felt like Sam was speed running the stories this morning. But Netta, prequel movies are totally incoherent plots with awful CGI effects, and acting. Sequel movies suck, but for different reasons. Saying the prequel movies is good is total revisionism.
Brendan, do you like this?
No.
Yeah.
All right. We'll leave that.
No, go ahead. I'll just disassociate.
I love this. I feel like we came up with this too late. Campaign Kaylee. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, there has to be
still going on. It's still going on.
I know. We got a couple more weeks of Kaylee McEnany. She shows up on a show, as you know, folks. You never know which one you're going to get. Is she got her I'm White House spokesman hat on, or am I the campaign spokesman hat on? And here she is. She's saying,
wait. Hold on. I'm sorry. It could be Campaign Kaylee and Kaylee McEnany.
Oh, that's pretty good. Well, no, that's the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Two names,
damn it.
yeah.
If you're McEnany, then that is the campaign Kelly.
Right. Well, I don't know.
Well, you could do like Campaign McEnany, like you put a gratuitous.
but now we're still on the campaign
nickname.
Here's the point. The idea that states can't run their elections the way they want to is absurd. However, we have this lawsuit. Here's Kayleigh McEnany, constitutional law expert.
It's frivolous. Now we've got, 6, 7 states wanting to be on the case. They want in because they want to protect their own citizens from being disenfranchised.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So not only do several of these states want to file an amicus brief in support, they want to join the case. They want to stand for the rights of their citizens, Sean. And as you said, pointing out what Georgia said and these defendants said about it being seditious, an attack on sovereignty. No, what these 4 states did collectively was an attack on the United States Constitution. You've laid out the arguments very clearly night after night, and you had Alito, Gorsuch, and Thomas joining in an opinion warning us in advance of the election. If you don't sort this out, there will be chaos in the election. And that's one of the themes, Sean, as we all saw the writing on the wall. As you'll recall, that canvasser, the board of canvassers, remember when 2 refused to certify the election? I went back and was reading through some of the affidavits in this court case, and one of those individuals who wouldn't certify the election was a woman named Monica Palmer, and she writes that all the way back in the primary in August,
oh my God,
she saw all these irregularities. All 4 Democrats and Republicans joined and said, we've got to investigate what's going on. We see flaws in the system here with mass mail-out voting and the elimination of safeguards. The poll books aren't balanced. And what happened? We all watched this happen in slow motion. And we will stand for the Constitution. It matters, which is what these states are doing by joining Texas.
All right. So now I understand there were a couple of
They're back with their props, their paper props. I mean, it is the most transparent thing they do every time. The Trump administration.
I have something to refute it right here.
I got a notebook.
Paper.
Paper. That means I'm official. It means everything I say matters.
Here's Brad Heath. He tweeted out that Montana's governor, I think this is quoting from the amicus brief. Some people say, I say amicus, but some say amicus, apparently.
I think
Montana's
it's
governor
amicus.
Said his state did many of the things Texas said make an election illegal. But Texas didn't sue them because Trump won. Quote, underscoring, of course, that this is less about election integrity than it is about attempting to overturn the will of the electorate. Introduction, Texas has sued 4 other states directly in this court, seeking to overturn the results of the presidential election. Texas alleges that these states' efforts to facilitate voting in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic violated the Electors Clause. Texas further maintains that, like I said the other day, I don't think these people have standing, frankly. I just don't know how
I was just about to say that. You have to prove harm in order to demonstrate standing or prove standing or whatever. And Texas cannot prove that it's been harmed by the decisions in Georgia and Wisconsin and all the other states that they're suing. And these are the Republicans who care about states' rights.
Wow. I mean, like the hypocrisy thing. Like, it's just.
I know it's lazy to hypocrisy shame them, but I mean, it's so blatant.
There is a concern that what the Supreme Court is going to do is say, well, this ship has sailed, but they may open the door for an opportunity in the future for future hijinks by electors. But I don't know. I don't know how people are going to react to a state saying that, we're going to disregard the actual vote that has taken place by people, and we're just going to have the electors pick it.
Seems pretty anti-democratic.
Yes, it is anti-democratic. That's why I wonder how people would respond. Here is Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. He is the one who brought this suit initially. It's been joined by, 15, 16 other Republican-controlled states, Republican attorney generals, and 106 lawmakers in the Republican caucus in the House. And here is Ken Paxton trying to avoid the question that everybody's asking. It's like, why are you bringing this? And incidentally, Ken Paxton, the FBI just served a warrant, a subpoena on some of his stuff to find out if he's been using his office to benefit some of his friends. This investigation has been ongoing. We have reported in the past. I don't know. There's only 3 weeks left for those mass pardons. Who knows? But here's Ken Paxton being asked that very question about pardons.
Some critics are saying that you've launched this investigation in a play for a presidential pardon. What is your reaction to that?
I could not hear your question.
In a play for a presidential pardon, what is your reaction to that?
Say it one more time.
In a play for a presidential pardon.
So I've had no discussions with anything about anything like that.
Is there anything else you want to say or add regarding this, the next steps, what's going to happen?
So I think this is important not just for this election. This isn't just about Joe Biden and Donald Trump. This is about the future of our elections. That's why this is so important to me, because if we allow this type of process, no one can trust these elections again. When you have Pennsylvania going from 233,000 mail-in ballots in 2016 to 2.5 million, you eliminate all the rules to verify that these mail-in ballots, which are already more suspect than voting in person with a photo ID, now you have no signature verification. How can anybody trust those elections for now or ever?
This is Ken Paxton doing what we used to call on the radio a twofer. And this is Ken Paxton fishing for a pardon.
Texas AG, who's facing some criminal issues.
Potentially. Very possibly. And also setting it up to justify more onerous restriction on people's voting rights going forward in the future. That is it, bottom line. And that's what's going on here. And I at least he's being honest insofar as saying, like, this is also about the future. We want to try and make it much harder to vote in the future. And this is one of those things. That's the project here, folks.
But most importantly, my future, which I'm fearful might be upended by some sort of charge. So, Donald Trump, can you make sure I'm insulated from any consequences? I mean, it's nice. It's just a race to suck up to Trump at this point.
It's nice to have two agendas align so perfectly. We should all be so lucky. Meanwhile, and I think, listen, I don't.
Yeah.
You subscribe to this channel, folks. I keep meaning to tell people to do that.
Yes,
but we are now. I've been told less than 10,000 subscribers away from 1 million. And if we get to 1 million subscribers, I get a plaque.
Nice.
So come on, man.
Where should we put the plaque?
I have the 100,000. I haven't put that one up yet, but you know where all my stuff goes. You could tell you're in the office.
I can't see. I don't
know.
No,
you know where it goes. Where's all the awards go? Bathroom,
right.
Yeah.
But you could wear it as some sort of chain around your neck, like the plaque,
The only person who was actually genuinely excited, who thought it was like a big deal, the 100,000 plaque was my daughter. That was it.
Well, I'm excited retroactively. Like the retroactive pardons, I can now send excitement back to past Sam.
Well, people should subscribe to the YouTube channel here. And so do it.
Do it.
But here's what reminded me of that. I rarely ask people to share videos, but I'd like to do that now, because if you have friends or family in Georgia and they're Republicans, I want to help Lou Dobbs get this message out to those people, because Lou Dobbs has been over the past 20, 30 years, one of the most trusted news voices in the country. He used to be on CNN, after all. Go ahead.
Yes, well, the American people are going to have to insist on paper ballots with real identification. That's going to be one of the key things.
Well, that's going to be great for the next. Sydney, I've got to tell you, I'm not even going to contemplate the next election. I'm not even contemplating the January 5th election in Georgia. The hell with that. If the people of Georgia are dumb enough, after what they have gone through in the November 3rd election, to then go toward January 5th and a runoff and think that changing nothing will change the outcome, then the people of Georgia aren't half as smart as I believe them to be. And I believe the patriots in Georgia should stop this nonsense now. It is not something that to be decided about over who do you favor, which party, which candidate. This is now about faith in the electoral system in one specific state that may control the destiny of this country. And by God, it's too important for anyone. And I don't care what party you're in. I don't care whether you're an independent. This is too important to act as if nothing happened on November 3rd and to pretend that there will be a different outcome on January 5th. It's idiotic.
I love the Bernie or bust attitude from Lou Dobbs there. And also, that's my Time Person of the Year, Sidney Powell and Lou Dobbs. I mean, they Time picked Kamala and Biden as their Person of the Year, so I get to pick Lou Dobbs and Sidney.
That's your pick there. All right. Well, fair enough. And I just want to say to folks, if you are in Georgia and this has been sent to you by a relative who cares about you, I think probably Lou was being a little hyperbolic when he was saying stupid or idiot, but I think this point remains. If you're a Republican, it's hard to rationalize why you would vote in this election when you know the whole thing is so rigged. So I don't know. People in general, I tell people that they should vote. It's an important exercise, but I can also, I guess what I'm saying is that Lou Dobbs is a very trusted source. And if you're a Republican, I can see why you might be discouraged and might just say, to heck with it. It's not going to make a difference.
Yeah, maybe just vote next time around. Just use this time to work on yourself, self-care, watch a lot of Lou Dobbs, and then maybe also subscribe to the Majority Report.
You could do that. I mean, and then if you did subscribe to the Majority Report, you'd find out that, one of the reasons why you should go out and vote against the Republicans would be because of what Mitch McConnell is doing. He's preventing people from getting relief from an economic package in the coronavirus. And he's doing it because he wants to, it's really unclear. He says it's because he wants to allow corporations to be able to endanger their customers and their workers and not be subject to civil suits. But there's not many of those suits happening. So it's hard to understand. But
yeah, I unpacked this with Jeff Stein of the Washington Post on Ring of Fire. So everybody should check that out too. My first episode, my first interview for Ring of Fire.
Emma, and I have
Seamless
not told
plug,
you this,
by the way.
But I will say this, and folks should check it out. I talked to Digby about the week in the news, and Emma interviews Jeff Stein from the Washington Post. And Scott Milliken, who has been producing radio for, at least 15 years. Well, 15 years. Sent me a text. Said that interview was great.
Oh, there you go. That's very nice.
I meant to tell you that before the show, but so I thought you might like to know that.
That's really nice.
And folks, I appreciate your sending around that Lou Dobbs thing. Here is, I don't like to play Newsmax, but I thought it was hard to argue with Lynn Wood's point when he appeared on Newsmax, which is telling Georgian Republican voters not to vote. I mean, it's hard to argue. I'll try and argue with it afterwards, but let's see the case he's making.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you about the runoff. You drew a little bit of heat last week because, you were skeptical about, hey, what's going to happen on January 5th? Are we going to participate or not? The people interpreted your remarks in all kinds of ways. How do you stand right now on the January 5th Senate runoff? Should Georgians get out there, especially Republicans, and vote?
I take the same position now that I took at that rally. The January 5th runoff is a runoff based on an unlawful and illegal election in Georgia. There was fraud in the special mail, the absentee mail ballots. There was computer fraud in the voting machines, which are owned by China. Why in the world would you go and vote in another rigged election? I have not told anyone not to vote. What I have said is that Kelly Loeffler needs to support an investigation into the fraud, demand that the governor of Georgia hold a special session of the legislature to fix it. David Perdue ought to do the same thing. The people in Georgia are mad. They know who they voted for. They know their votes were stolen. And I believe that Senator Loeffler and Senator Perdue owe it to the voters, the people, to fix that November 3rd election. And if they don't, I tell you right now, I don't live in Venezuela. I'm not going to go vote in a rigged election because you're going to be validating and affirming that it's okay to do so.
Now, I get his point, but it's really hard to argue with the point he's making if you're a Republican voter, because you, as first principle, you think that there shouldn't be runoff in the first place, and why would you participate in that vote as a Republican voter? Now, but with that said, if he did live in Venezuela, of course he wouldn't be able to vote in Georgia, because he wouldn't be a resident of Georgia. And he wouldn't be valid to
Sam,
vote.
you're wrong, because it's so rigged by Brian Kemp that Venezuelans are able to vote in Georgia, which is why real Georgia
Georgia.
Right. They're basically one and the same at this point, due to Soros buying Brian Kemp, showering him with gifts. Brian Kemp, known socialist, and it's only going to go one direction anyway, so you should be discouraged.
It is going to be fascinating to see if World Net Daily and this crew of people, and I guess the Lou Dobbs, are going to be able to make the difference in this Georgian runoff. I mean, it's going to be fascinating. Also, it bugs me still that these Republicans who talk about vote rigging all the time now, just because they're following Trump's lead, this is the party that's been gerrymandering out the wazoo and redistricting and trying to disenfranchise Black voters, Latino voters, people who are more inclined to vote blue. And then they have the gall to constantly go out there and talk about how it's rigged against them in a Senate where it's way overrepresented their entire base. Like, Montana has the same amount of senators as California, but you guys are the victims here. But as Trump said, we're all victims. So that's the mentality that we're seeing. We have a couple of Dave Rubin clips on this topic of the
this is a perfect way
latest lawsuit. No, I have lost count. There's a Benghazi quality to this, and a repeal Obamacare quality to this. They passed, I think. The Republican-controlled House they had something like 55 votes to repeal Obamacare, maybe more. They had countless hearings on Benghazi. And now we're up in the 50s, I think it is, for the lawsuits that have been brought around this election. I think like every single one of them but one, and that one was like a small procedural question, were rejected out of hand by the courts. And here's Dave Rubin applying an interesting metric as to how you determine whether a lawsuit is legit or not. And it's not the trail of 49 or 55 or however many losses it's been in the past 3 or 4 weeks. In fact, it's something else. Which cable channel you watch?
Regardless of what the truth is about election fraud, or was it done absolutely perfectly? I mean, the fact that YouTube doesn't want you to talk about it, mainstream is ignoring it. If anything, that in and of itself makes it seem like it's more legit, right? Like if every day the mainstream media was covering it and saying, oh, we had these hearings today and these regular citizens put their butts on the line to say these things, but they're all crazy people or something like that. Well, if you guys were covering it, well, then it wouldn't seem so weird. But the more they say, oh, don't look over there, the more that the average person, because they've shot their load already, right? I'm trying to be cleaner this week. They've busted their nut. Wait, that didn't work either. You get what I'm saying, people. They've done such a poor job
master communicator
of doing what they're supposed to do, that the more they ignore something at this point, the more legit it seems.
Why did he go cruder when he said he was trying to be cleaner?
Can I just say that unlike the clip from last week where I clipped that, Dave posted that section himself. So that's their promotional. He thought that was the best clip.
He thought that was the best content of the day.
And so, I mean, that the theory is that the less, now I can't tell if he's doing like a media critique or he's actually like critiquing the lawsuits, right? Like the idea is that the media can delegitimize things that are delegitimate by covering them. The non-news stories, cover the non-news stories so that people know that they're non-news stories, as opposed to people just doing something, right? Like, I mean, I don't know, these lawsuits, everyone seems to know they're not going anywhere. Everybody seems to know that much of them are kayfabe or just absolutely out of their mind. I mean, really, the story would be like, who's financing these? Why are they doing it? Et cetera, et cetera. But in his mind, in his narrow world, they become more legitimate because CNN is not dedicating enough coverage to it or something to that effect. I'm not sure exactly how that works.
No, so everything that CNN is not covering is the truth. I mean, that's just the reality. The Yeti is in your backyard. Michael Jackson, still alive, rigging the votes in Venezuela. All of these things are more legitimate because MSNBC chose not to talk about it on its nightly programming.
It's weird how teenagers skateboarding in a park is probably more legitimate than football because it is not being covered by the major networks.
What do you know?
But football is, isn't it? Strange.
Drunk idiots throwing darts in a bar. Way less important than way more legitimate than the NBA.
I watched the Patriots sadly lose last night, but I can't see people who are vomiting because they had too much Jack Daniels. So maybe,
that means that's more important.
It's an odd theory that Dave Rubin has. Dave Rubin has some other odd theories. And this is, it's honestly, it's like junior high. And, people criticize, and they've been criticized. I've been criticized for covering Fox over the years, or covering Dave Rubin, or Ben Shapiro, or any of these right wingers. And, more sophisticated people on the left are like, why are you wasting your time with that? But yesterday we had a call from someone from Turning Points who was laid off, who no longer subscribes to their ideology because of this show. We have people who call in all the time and say, I was a fan of Dave Rubin's, and then I caught some of your show, your critique of him, and now I'm to the left of you guys. I mean, that is a big part of what we do, particularly on YouTube, is to interact and to get into the sort of algorithm people so that they can see this stuff, because a lot of people who watch these shows, they go from one show like Dave Rubin to Ben Shapiro's show to Tim Pool's show and to Joe Rogan's show, and they say, these guys have to be right. Everybody agrees, because they get caught in a bubble and they don't realize there's other perspectives. Here is Dave Rubin trying to construct that bubble. Here he is.
I want to show you two tweets from Tim Pool. By the way, you guys know Tim Pool. I've had him on the show a bunch. I would say he's on the short list of people that I can call journalists without putting quotes around the word journalist. And I've got the tweets over here. Do I have the tweets?
I'd love to see the rest of that list.
The tweets from Tim. Oop. I don't think I have the tweets from Tim. Where'd the tweets go? Oh, I do have them here. You can still say there is evidence of widespread fraud. So I will say that. There appears to be evidence of widespread fraud. There are thousands of affidavits signed by people who were election regulators. You can still say Trump actually won. You cannot combine the two. What strange times we live in. So yes, folks, we do live in strange times.
Pause it for 1 second. Will you go back to that tweet and explain to me what that tweet says? Is he claiming that, first of all, is he claiming that you can't, I see what you say. He's talking about, this is all about like on where YouTube has decided that they're not going to promote the fiction that Donald Trump has won the election. Is that what it is? And so you can say that Trump definitely won, and you can do,
journalist. Like, we wouldn't even describe ourselves as journalists on the show, right? We're talk show people, right? We're pundits or whatever. You can't call just somebody who talks on the internet a journalist just because.
I think Tim Pool has in the past done some journalism. I think he has, actually, in the past. And now he is, I think, just a grifter. And the idea that, like, we can't spread misinformation. I hope they join us. in calling for the breakup of Google and YouTube and to allow there to be competition. And they can find a service where they're allowed to spread disinformation to people. I mean, there is the funny part is that, you know, that title, the non-quotated title of journalist, was once supposed to be, you know, like where you have a trusted news source. And I'm sorry, there's just no evidence that Tim Pool is in any way trustworthy in that respect. I think there's arguments about, taking this stuff off of YouTube and whatnot. I think it's obviously a private service. They can do what they want. I think it's not that necessarily as helpful. I think for these folks, if you totally demonetized all their stuff that they are doing and still allow them to get the word out, you consistently did that. But I think YouTube has got, they make a lot of money off of Tim Pool. And so there's a certain amount of conflict. And that's probably why they're reacting in the way that they do, because they also want to make it seem like they're not making a lot of money off of Tim Pool, because Tim Pool's making a lot of money too. So I'm much more in favor of, like, we're demonetizing you. You can put up anything you want. We're demonetizing you. Yeah. And I have a feeling a lot of this stuff would dry up a lot quicker if they weren't making money off it. That's my sense.
Well, sounds like we could put his that theory to the test and just see if he wants to put up free content.
Yeah, exactly.
Just call him
that
out.
way they can get the word out.
Right.
Want to play this clip. This is really disturbing. So this guy, Brandon Bernard, he was, I believe it was 18. He was 40 as of yesterday. So 22 years ago, he was involved in I think it was a car hijacking and the murder of two people who were carjacked. He was with 4 or 5 other kids, 18-year-olds. All right, we'll call them not kids, men. And he was not directly involved in the actual killing of these people. There was also a huge amount of evidence that he did not get a fair trial. There was also something like 5 out of the 9 surviving jurors said that if they were told what the prosecution had disallowed or had prevented or failed to introduce in terms of, like, his role in this group of kids, this gang, I think it was, they would not have on the sentencing at the sentencing stage recommended execution.
It was mostly an all-white jury, and also what the prosecution tried to portray was that he set a car on fire with the couple inside, which evidence showed later, no.
He did not. Now, and there has been a federal moratorium on killing people for much of those 18 years. I think it actually has been like 14 years. So he went to prison like 2003, and I think the moratorium was like shortly after that. So he has been essentially on death row. And President Trump and Bill Barr in July lifted the federal moratorium on murdering people, what they call capital punishment. And there have been 9 people, including Brandon Bernard, who was killed last night by
and
lethal injection.
They're rushing it in. More to come. They're rushing it in at the end of the year.
Here's a clip of him in the Indiana penitentiary.
I'm locked up in my room 23 hours a day. That's been the case for 17 years. I have learned to entertain myself, to keep myself motivated in here. And I've done all kinds of things. I read a lot. And I do crochet blankets and scarves, and I do hats, all kinds of things. It feels good to create something. I practice the guitar. I feel like I'm getting better, but that's up for debate. But I keep doing it. And I write, and it's just, I've taken a couple of college courses, writing course and stuff like that, in order to just motivate myself to just change. You know, I don't have to be stagnant because I'm in here. I can always improve on myself. Maybe not as much as people in the world can, but still, there's an opportunity to improve yourself. And for that, I have to take it. For those that believe in me out in the world and for myself. And in being in here, one thing I've learned is that I have to do things for myself. When you try to do things for others, to try to appease others, it's not natural. And I feel like I've learned that these improvements I need to do for myself. So then they hold and they stand through test of time.
He was executed last night by the federal government. And look, even if there's a tremendous, this is a tremendous miscarriage of justice based upon his role in these killings and the life he has led for the past, or had led for the past 17 years in prison, and based upon the discrepancies in the trial. But even putting that aside, there should be no ability by the state, and by that I mean states or the federal government, to kill people in a calculated, cold manner in this way. I mean, I only am qualifying it in that sense that I think like the question of war is a different question. But in this instance, it is murder. It is by every definition, except for the fact that the state is doing it. It is murder. There is an intent. There is, it's not in the heat of passion. It is a clear and calculated murder. And the problem is, in my mind, aside from it being incredibly unjust in this instance and others, and aside from the fact that we know that we've killed people who are innocent in the past, and that it's almost impossible to avoid killing innocent people when you have a when you murder people, you can't go backwards. They're dead. The idea that when the state says there are circumstances which validate the taking of a person's life, then it's just up to negotiation. You know, you're basically saying to someone who wants to murder someone else, it really isn't so much that the murder is wrong. It's the reasons. You need to have a proper reason before you murder somebody. We have a good reason here to kill this person. And so then all of a sudden it really just becomes a debate as to how justified the killing is. That's why I am hesitant to engage in the legal, things, except for as it would prevent someone from being killed, but as a sort of like a moral critique, like that is irrelevant, because that's just sort of engaging in what the state is engaging in, which is that we have a good reason to kill this person.
Right. I mean, that conversation was necessary in order to save Brandon's life.
Yes, agreed. Totally.
And we didn't. And the Supreme Court upheld it. The pro-life Amy Coney Barrett upheld the execution, and he was executed minutes later. And so seeing him as this thoughtful, dignified human being, despite his circumstances and all of what he was, making out of his life, it maybe sheds a light on how barbaric this process is for somebody who might not be inclined to oppose the death penalty. But that's where that ends, because you can't feed into the framing. It's unjust to murder anybody. It doesn't matter if it's a terrorist, and it doesn't matter if it's someone like Brandon, who was clearly, in my view, a good person. And so it's the sanitizing of the murder that bothers me most. How apparently he had to be injected with a sedative to calm down, and then they kill them by lethal injection, but they still feel the pain, even though they're sedated. And yet, somehow, to people who want to be removed from the blood of murder, who don't want to see the images of murder, they get to justify it in their mind. It's this cognitive dissonance. But it's actually more barbaric to me, and even in that way, because it's premeditated, as Sam said, it's state sanctioned, and it's this attempt to remove the realities of murder from the murder. And that just makes us a more murderous, a more violent society, because we're not truly reckoning with what we're doing. And as Sister Helen Pareene, I think her last name has put it, I think we have the tweet just about how this is a murder of poor people. This is what this is. I saw on Twitter today that Dylan Roof was trending. And not that I don't know what his socioeconomic background is, but it's specifically the murder of poor Black and brown people. And we've been doing this as a society for a long time. It's a continuation of lynching. It's a continuation of all of the horrors that we've been doing since slavery. And so you have to look at it as that spectrum, on that spectrum, to fully grasp the scope.
And how demented. And I want to say, like, I don't just reserve this judgment for Trump and Bill Barr. Bill Clinton proved his bona fides by ordering or not pardoning or staying the execution of a man who had an IQ, if I remember, like in the 60s or 70s, when he was running for president in 93, to prove his sort of bona fides as a law and order guy. But how demented do you have to be as a human being to say, we're going to lift this moratorium, we're going to get as many executions as we can over the course of these 6 months, 5 months, July to December. We're going to try and get 15 executions in, 3 a month if we can, knowing that Joe Biden, and knock on wood, I hope I'm right about this, I think I am, is going to come in and reinstitute the moratorium.
Yeah.
Like to what possible end? Possible end could you?
It's Barr being a zealot. I don't even think this is Trump. Like, Trump was ready to pardon Alice Johnson because Kim Kardashian came in and asked him to, right?
Yeah, somebody argued that it was going to be a valuable, electoral strategy, and somebody probably argued that with him on this too.
Well, I'm glad he did it, but at the same time, he is so concerned right now with election nonsense and trying to overturn the results of the election that he's just like, yeah, I'll let this zealot Bill Barr, very respected in lawyer circles, by the way, cram in as many murders as possible of a man who was barely 18 at the time and didn't actually commit the murder. And the cognitive dissonance of the Supreme Court, where they make this, they uphold this, right? And they just say, well, it's our judicial duty, right? It's just, we're just abiding by our judicial philosophy. And somehow that removes them from allowing a murder to happen. Somehow that absolves you because you pretend to adhere to a judicial philosophy when you don't actually. And then you pretend to be a follower of Jesus and religious.
The funny part, you remember the Dianne Feinstein accusation of Amy Coney Barrett that you are filled with the dogma. That was in her first hearing as a federal judiciary. It was because of a law review article that Coney Barrett had written in the 90s, where she was taking to task Catholics who were ruling against capital punishment because they were adhering to a Catholic dogma too much. And she said those people whose Catholicism made them see capital punishment as wrong in every case should remove and recuse themselves from those cases, so that their perspective on that is not implicated when it comes to the question of whether they should support the capital punishment as a judge. Now, of course, that doesn't apply for her when it comes to being anti-choice, anti-abortion. But it is.
You mean pro-life, Sam?
Pro-life, yes, of course, pro-life. That's what it was.
But murder this man last night.
I mean, that is just the. But I just think the death penalty is barbarism, and it is completely. It is sending a mixed message to society. It is saying that murder's not necessarily wrong. It's just that you need to have a good reason for it. And then all of a sudden, it's like, well, one person's good reason is another person's not good reason.
Yeah, the state's good at finding reasons.
All right, let's do a couple IMs, and then we're going to wrap it up, folks. Quite a week. Leon Thotsky, R.I.P. Brandon Bernard, abolish the death penalty, abolish retributive justice.
Retributive, right?
Retributive. Trainer rocks. In regard to the convo with Alex, have you ever looked into POCLAD, Program on Corporations, Law and Democracy, and CLDF? They do democracy schools. Very interesting. I have not. Amy Jean from MD. Aaron Hernandez, a murder was on the team. Yes, it's true, on the Patriots. Evan from New Jersey, DraftKings, Brother Man, also AOC term review. Can that be normalized? Also, apparently, Danny Dimes looks good. This is all football talk. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know. But a hammy, it's soft tissue, so it's I worry about re-aggravating it.
Did I say Susan Olsen? It's Lisa. Hugo, the voting machine inspector, says Lisa Olsen, not Susan, you fake victim valor stealer. Ooh. You're not even from Worcester anymore. You're from New York. Made for by Milton. Sam, Queen's Gambit is a miniseries, and it's perfect. All wrapped up in a bow and done after 7 episodes that fly by. All right, I'm sold. Chardonnay Socialist. Wow, Sam, I thought you were going to say that this line of questioning was depressing because Majority Report was about to talk about football. As a former college football player, it's difficult to watch knowing that these guys are doing their bodies and brains, indeed. Lindsey Graham Cracker, we need a shortcut of you saying the idea that. Okay. It's idea. Okay, how about an anti-authorian film playlist show from the whole crew and Matthew Film Guy? Unfortunately, the most damaging concept the right has adopted from the last 60 years has been the elevation of counterintuitivity.
Guys, watch V for Vendetta.
4 more of these things. 5 more. Buckaroo Samurai. Hey, team, really depressed at the number of adults who almost only consume Star Wars, Marvel, or Disney stuff. I generally hate discussions of high love art, but there's something really sad when the majority of contemporaries consume almost exclusively equivalent to young adult or younger content. There's nothing wrong with enjoying popcorn films, but if your diet is mostly popcorn is unhealthy, the amount of adults excited by the consolidation of the medium under Disney and excitement for MCU and SW domination, if everything is troubling. Yes. Well, yeah. I agree.
I was wondering if you were going to read my IM.
Well, no, look,
I didn't write that.
I watch The Bachelorette, right? Like I watch Housewives. Like that's the lowest of the low. But then I also do this, and then I watch good movies. So you just got to balance it out. That's all good. You watch as many Marvel movies as you want, but also balance out your.
That's the whole project with Matthew Film Guy.
Get some
coming in and suggesting movies that are where film is an art. Michigan Redneck. Pats fans don't get to complain while franchises like the Lions still exist. Lions are the Cubs of the 21st century. Dr. Chaos MD. When the New York Times editorial board endorsed Warren and Klobuchar for the Dem primary, they didn't realize the Time magazine would be asking them to hold their beer later this year. New York Times overplayed their hand. That was out of touch and silly to begin with, indeed. Bravo-matic. So the endless Marvel talk is okay, but Ronald Reagan is shadow banned from pitching his cartoon stage production scripts? Are you just daring me to cancel my membership? Grave Boobin. Campaign Kaylee versus Kaylee McAdam. Oh, McAdmin. I like that. James in Jersey. Campaign Kaylee is a graduate of Harvard Law. Speaking of elite law scumbags. And the final IM of the day, ladies and gentlemen, where the heck? I haven't been doing it that much enough to. This is actually the final IM of the week. Matt, Brendan, Emma, Jamie, great job this week, guys.
Thank you.
And wait. Emma bets on the NFL, says joins for PA. What else does Emma bet on? College, other sports? Quick.
I don't like college football that much because it's exploitative. Not that the NFL is that great, but that goes a little too far. But I do sometimes bet on the NBA, but it burns me more often than not because I don't know it as well.
See you guys Monday.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bulb, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in.